Hi, everybody.
Hang out on air live.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Hey, do me a favor, Liz. I know you're. I'm hoping you're listening. Could you go ahead and send out the notifications once again, the tweets, and Facebook post and Slack? If somebody out there is listening right now who is on Slack, can you go ahead and put tweet? Well, not a tweet, a posting in announcements or something like that. That our show is just about to start, and if they're available to join us, and maybe put the link to the YouTube page, that'd be awesome. Why is the top bar of the Google Hangouts? Why is it showing like a speaker and then a speaker goes away? Does yours do that?
No, I've just got the
Window?
live window.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the Google Hangouts, and then right next to the right of it, I see like a little speaker, and then it goes away. That's weird. Maybe
Right
it shows
next to
that
Google Hangouts. No,
the thing that you're looking at right now. You're seeing me?
I
Hey,
see you. Yeah, and whereabouts on the screen?
say Google Hangouts up in the actual window, your window on your computer.
No, not happening here.
Oh, okay. That's weird. Maybe it only does it to mine. Never noticed that before. Oh, yeah. If I need to get the.
Hello. I'm just looking at my window. And no, I don't see it on my window.
Okay.
Don't see it on your window.
Does yours say Google Hangouts?
Yeah.
Okay. I need to get the chat room up on this thing. So let me hit YouTube. Hope everybody's doing well there in the chat room.
Yeah. What do you think of the T-shirt, everybody?
Well, I just love it.
You don't all have to say you like it. That's
I know, I'm
fine.
not here for anybody. How do I do this? Right here, and then go like this. And here we go. There's the chat room window. Pop out the chat.
Pump up the volume, pop out the chat. Oh.
Pop.
You're welcome.
So is that just me, ladies and gentlemen? When he kind of lost his glasses and it kind of stopped and stuttered a little bit and came back, that's probably just coming to me like that.
Well, I have been getting a few bits of breakup from you, but my internet's been pretty good since they upgraded me.
Very nice.
Yeah, I got new modem or a new router, and a couple of extenders. So I'm very big now. Yeah. Exactly.
The ladies like the extenders.
Okay.
Okay.
And the lollipop stick. Yes, that's the other thing I needed.
Don't know what that is.
A popsicle stick, you would call it, I guess. It's all right.
Not sure what you're referring to, but okay.
Okay. I'll tell you a joke about that another day.
Are we talking about routers or something else?
About a gentleman's appendage and a lollipop stick. So, yeah.
Well, APG be shifting away from Hangouts. Why? Why would we be?
What's happening, Ken? What do you know that we don't?
I think the whole talk about Hangouts and Messenger and that kind of stuff is like separate from what they use here in YouTube live streaming. It's like what you can get on your Android phone and what you can, Google, what is it called? Google Office, Google Business, whatever. They're doing something with Hangouts, deprecating. Is that right? Deprecating? Oh, it's where's my hat? It's behind the TV. Why can't you see that, Jordan? You can't even see the TV, can you?
Bit further.
See that?
Yeah, that'll do.
What, I need to go?
A bit further left. That's it. Well done.
Yeah, this desk chair is it keeps the hydraulics keep
Sinking. Getting that sinking
uh,
feeling.
erectile
You actually look like one of those guys, those Chinese guys or Japanese guys in the office chair race. Do you see that going around this little track, all sitting on their chairs, pedaling? Very funny.
Right. Right. Time for a shower. Get the APG shirt on and hit the bar. Of course, with my hat, right? That really attracts the babes in the bar. That's not true at all. Yeah, Ken, I don't know. I have not seen anything on YouTube Live that is indicating in any way that they're going to get rid of what we have here. But if they do, we'll do something else. Probably Zoom. But anyway, I really don't see it happening, Ken, but thank you for your concern. Hey, Jonathan Hardwick. Now we're going to talk about Jonathan Hardwick. Well, I'll talk about it right now. I met him for the first time. We haven't met before, have we, Jonathan? I don't think so. Was it the A concourse that we saw each other a couple days ago, or was it B concourse? I think it was A. And
AA, that's the American Airlines concourse, is it?
not AA.
Oh.
A.
Oh, AA.
And he flies for. Well, I hope he doesn't mind me saying Spirit. And he was commuting, trying to get home, and he saw me walking the opposite direction and stopped me, and then he gave us a wonderful coffee fund contribution, which will come.
Whoa!
So yeah, see.
Very nice, Mr. Hardwick. Thank you.
Yes,
You are dropping out a bit to me, Jeff. I don't know who it is.
Crap.
But just occasionally, that's all. Which reminds me.
Well, let me do my hotspot. See if that's any better.
Is he dropping out to anybody else? Question mark. Or is it just me? In which case, it doesn't matter so much. Yeah, Liz has a few little dropouts.
Yeah, I saw that was pretty funny.
Liz is a little dropout, or you're a little dropout.
No. Okay, I'm getting. Well, again, this is a case where I'm getting really good bandwidth from the hotel Wi-Fi, but it's not consistent. It's probably doing these little minor dropouts and then comes back on again, which is fine for streaming, like Netflix, Hulu, and that kind of thing. Not good for us doing a podcast. So my hotspot is 14 down and 3.76 up, which is good enough. So if it starts getting bad, then I'll just switch to the hotspot. Well, you don't want me to try it now?
Yeah, why not? We got time.
All right. It might be out for a couple seconds. Oh, that's stupid. Not this computer, Jeff. It's the other computer.
It's the solstice, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
How do you spell that?
SOLTACE. Oh wait. SOLSTACE. But I forgot that the video is actually on this machine over here. So that was stupid. Bad phone. Get Ray. SOLSTIC. Still, thank you, Jen. Thank you, everybody else that's going to follow.
SGICE. All right. Okay.
Yeah, they're correctly. Ray, Frank, Jen.
There you go.
Jordan thinks or his autocorrect says SBLSBIC.
Excellent. Well, so there you go. A380. The big lady.
Airbus big lady, summer solstice. Okay.
There you go.
Nice. Okay. So now I'm on the hotspot.
That's pretty good so far.
Okay. So I'll just stick it
I beg your
where the
pardon?
sun doesn't shine. I'll put it over here behind.
But the sun's shining all day.
In the window. In the window.
Ooh, Jeff's pet peeves.
Okay. So let me know if I start dropping out again.
Okay.
Yeah. So Dana will be joining us probably 15, 20 minutes or so. He is having a dental procedure. And I guess, Liz, is Steph not going to join us today? I don't remember us discussing this when we talked about doing this today, that she said anything about not being available.
That's true.
You know what? You know why? She probably forgot that she was going to be in Chicago lecturing.
Ah.
That Steph.
Can't rely on her. She's terrible.
I know. What was loud? Well,
it wasn't loud to me here in England. It probably faded a bit as it went across the Atlantic.
Yeah. You know, I've had the echo button on the whole time.
Oh, right. Well, I hadn't noticed.
Okay. Well, I'm going to turn it off just to be safe.
Liz says she said she thought she'd try and make it, but blip, blip, blip.
You're cutting out.
Yeah, I did lose you for a second a bit earlier as well. I wasn't going to say anything.
What was better, this or the hotel internet?
This is.
Okay.
So far, anyway.
Maybe Steph is on CST. I am on CST as well. But maybe she got confused. Or maybe, hey, Liz, can you contact her through iMessage? Let's see what's up with Miss Steph. And did you get a chance to put out the tweets and stuff?
I saw the tweets earlier.
Okay. The one, like, right since we've been on the Hangout?
No, I got them this morning.
Right now.
I got them hours ago.
Jeff is in LSD. What is LSD?
Well, I think it's some nasty chemical that turns your brain into mush.
I've never done LSD. That is not true. Yep. Jeff, we don't need more people. I'm not asking to have more people. I'm sending the tweets right now. Okay, thank you. That would be awesome.
Pipperoon is on. Pip, did you get my clown feedback? Question mark.
Your clown feet back?
Clown
did you give you let him borrow your clown feet? Yeah. Actually, I've got size 11s. I don't need any extra special clown feet. I've got big enough ones. No, I sent Pip some. I sent Pip some clown feedback after his last show. Is he the one that has that fear of clowns?
He did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
I can't remember
which connection's worse. Yeah.
Yeah,
this is not working.
Could be.
I got to go back to the hotel.
I can't remember which, whether it was Al or Pip who was frightened of clowns or had a clown phobia.
I think Nick does. I mean, Pip.
think it's pepperoni. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, Frank, this is the way I always am. Jordan, do I have any plans for episode 100? Yes, we're going to do a show.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's start with that.
About 20 shows from now.
Yeah, like there'll be nothing in the coffee farm.
20 weeks from now. Somebody
So
get their
there's
calculator
going to be
out.
no hope of
Let's
having
see,
a special event.
312. I don't know. I have no idea how to figure out what 20 weeks is from now. I'm not going to get my calendar and count it. Hi, Nev. I'm just down the road. Okay. Dropping in for a few minutes. Hello, Nick Camacho. Hello, everybody else in there.
Nick's made it.
Coolrophobia.
Are you back in the States, Nick?
I think he is. I think he's going to try to make Oshkosh too for
Yeah,
this.
things. There were a few hiccups, mainly with the parachuters, I think, on the Dax over Normandy. But I also hear that the C-47s had problems landing at Berlin. There was a bit of a hiccup there, which is such a shame because when you go to all that effort to bring those aircraft right the way around the world to help celebrate the Berlin airlift, and then to have administrative screw-ups, it really is frustrating, or must be very frustrating. Still working with our crew to get the airplane hack back.
Don't hack that
I guess.
airplane.
No.
It's a hack-proof airplane. What are you talking
Let's
about?
hope you can find a day when the headwinds aren't too bad, because there are some long legs there.
Hey, you know what, Liz? I think that my supposition is correct. I was talking with Liz about, we should probably put out tweets and Facebook posts and Slack announcements, like when we're actually starting the show, because that might get more people to join us. And it looks like that may have happened.
Good.
Looks like several people here in the chat room I'm not used to seeing. Hopefully you can hang out with us for a little while anyway.
Excellent.
Bozophobia.
Yes.
Bozo the clown, yeah. Yeah, so no, we're not planning it. I mean, I'm sure we'll do something.
400 is not a really
Sort of.
special number. 500, now that will be a special number.
500,
Yeah.
now we'll do something. If I'm still alive, we'll do one.
What, do you have any plans? Thinking of visiting
God,
Switzerland?
I don't want to make any assumptions.
No?
And so somebody said something about a push notification. Did you send out a push out from the app, Liz? Where's my phone? See if I got one. If that actually happened, I'm very surprised.
I don't think I got
No,
one.
I didn't get. No, maybe the Android one. Whoever said they got a push notification, was that on Android? Oh, she said she did not send a push. Yeah, so whatever somebody thought was a push, that is not a push. That was just a regular tweet or Facebook post, or you can try if you want, Liz, but I don't think it's working. And I don't want to get into why not. It's complicated. So, and I don't have time to work on that right now, but hopefully we'll do something to resolve that issue with the app. Mid-October 2021, episode 500. Okay, let's count on that.
That's good. It won't be in the bowling season.
Yeah, well, we can't have that.
No, definitely not.
I guess we'll have to get a new host for the bowling season.
This yes, this current trip, which I've got like 20 matches in the next 2 weeks. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I just probably maxed out the microphone there. I've got 20 matches in the next 2 weeks to get played before I set off. Oh my God.
What's going on with you, Dick? Oh, the Android app does not hold the allow notification setting. Huh, that's weird. I wonder if that's true on every Android phone or just the one that you're using. People are blessing you, Nick. That's a good thing.
Yeah. Omnem partere et filioque spiritus sancti. Amen.
There you go. You blessed yourself.
Yeah. Thank you.
Actually, God blessed you on that one.
I'm sure he did.
Yes. Matt says, are we still looking for the 22nd, 23rd for Dayton? No, that's during Oshkosh. We're doing Dayton on 13, 14, 15, 16 of the 16th of June. Yep. So Matt, don't take the day off.
No, quite right.
You're not going to see us in Dayton on that day because we're going to be in the RV or somewhere around Oshkosh. Yeah, 16th. Thank you, Liz.
Yeah, Nick, I saw that quote from Sherman Smoot. What a great name that is, isn't it? About the fact that the boys were very angry at being unable to land in the city. So, yeah, and even the U.S. ambassador weighed in. I think Berlin screwed the pooch, quite honestly.
Oh, the poor pooch.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe the pooch liked it. Okay. Well, I guess we're going to just wait a little bit longer for Dana to join us because you said 5 minutes. We just got some internal.
That'll be an Acme Airlines 5 minutes, will it? We know how long one of those is.
Well, you know, the longer the better.
That's what she said.
Hang in there, Nick. You can do it.
Yeah, I'll push on through.
Cut down on that wine drinking or beer drinking or both, whatever you're doing.
I haven't. I'm on coffee currently. Coffee and water.
I could really use a beer. Really use a beer. But I'm not going to do. Maybe I'll go.
Well, I'm going to get one in a minute. That's for sure.
Get one for me too.
Oh, sure. Okay. What do you like? I've got some. Actually, I've got a nice Goose Island in my fridge.
A Goose IPA.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take that one.
My son gave me a Father's Day present of a selection of IPAs, and lo and behold, Goose was in there.
Well, Liz, I'm afraid it's going to take too long if I go downstairs to get a beer, especially if I stay down there at the bar and drink it.
Yeah. Well, the way Dana's going, you'll have plenty of time.
Shall I do that? Y'all don't mind?
No.
Okay, it shouldn't take me very long. Okay, be right back. And Nick will now entertain you.
How am I going to
remember? It's a family show.
Family show, folks. Family show. You've heard of filibustering. I could read a recipe book. How would that be? I could play a plain tale, except I can't because Jeff is the only person that can play stuff on this show. I could. I'll take questions from the audience. Darker behind Jeff than behind Nick. I guess because he hasn't got the lights. Oh, he has got a light on. How is the back? The back is actually much improved, thanks, Frank, because I think the extra exercise I get doing a bit of lawn bowling helped it a great deal. So now it's recovered. There you go. Bowls or bowels? Bow. Yeah, let's not talk about my bowels, but I'm more than happy to talk about bowls. Nick, no, I'm so disappointed that I didn't get a chance to ride in a C-47 that I decided to give up flying completely. The whiskey is still going, and it's fantastic. Loving it. Thank you very much indeed. Mind you, there's not many whiskies I don't love, so you can relax on that account. I do have an antenna analyzer. Let me get it. Hang on a minute. All right, the analyzer I use is this extremely fancy piece of kit, which is an Italian Metro VNA, one of these. And it does all sorts of plots and multi-frequency and analyzing simultaneously. So it's absolutely perfect for tuning errors. It really is a good piece of kit. I was very impressed with it, and inexpensive, very inexpensive. Cool. In comparison with other things. Yeah, Neville. Yes, thank you, Neville. My bowl movements are fine. Thank you very much. We're doing a very good job on the bowling green at the moment. How much? How do you pay for 200? Not a lot, Bo. I wouldn't have thought right now. Does not have a high tolerance for podcasts. Gail, you have to divorce him immediately and find someone who loves the APG. There's plenty out there. I was served, Tony, I served at Coningsby for quite a while. And had I become a full-blown member of the OCU staff, I could have had or might have had an opportunity. But quite honestly, those slots on the Battle of Britain Memorial flight tended to go to the station executives, so the station commander, the OC ops, the squadron commanders. So when you when you looked at them and the flight commanders, I might have had a chance, and you've got to be fairly committed, and usually you have to have a bit of a display background if you're not one of the big wheels. So yeah, it was really nice to be able to see them flying all the time. Yeah. Farthest I've spoken on the radio. Well, on this current setup, I've got as far as Canada, but the eastern side, I'm trying to remember exactly where. And I've got into New York a few times. I haven't got down to Africa yet. And for Australia and New Zealand and the Far East, you really got to be up very early in the morning rather than late at night. Quite honestly, with the way the atmosphere behaves at this time of year, the windows of opportunity are quite narrow. It's actually better in the winter if you don't want to stay up all night.
Hi, Nick.
Hey, Dana, how's it going? How's your
Good.
teeth?
How are you? See,
Yeah,
I
very
had
good.
some dental work done.
I had them fixed. Yeah, they look a lot better now, mate.
Much better now that I have
Much
my
better.
dental work correctly fixed.
Yeah, we saw your picture and we were wondering what the hell was going on. Still, you look good now.
Yeah, thank you. I've improved my
Yeah.
look, I think.
How's the dribbling?
Off the left side, I still can't. Well, I don't feel a damn thing, to be quite honest. But doctor's offices, they are good at doing certain things, like making it numb. Dentists. So.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So.
Nick, Nick Camacho, what's conventional gear time? I mean, do aircraft have unconventional gear time?
What?
Nick Camacho from the C-47 asking what conventional gear time is. He's asking if I have any conventional gear time. I mean, if I flew, you asked me if I flew an airplane with fixed undercarriage. Yeah, I did, but long time ago. A long time ago.
No,
I can
conventional Hamish. Conventional is not equal tail wheel. I don't think. Maybe it does.
Conventional gear as a tail dragger? Could be. I don't know. Yeah, I have flown tail dragger. I have flown the Chipmunk. The de Havilland Chipmunk. Thank you, Hamish. You know where they put the third wheel in the back? Yeah, I've worked it out now.
Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Dana. How you doing?
Sorry to delay everything. I had to have some dental work done.
Oh, yeah. I see. It's really improved your look.
Yeah, I think it's
far
quite
better.
I fixed him completely. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Very cool.
I can.
Can you? You're not acknowledging my words.
I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I was acknowledging.
Okay.
It just Nick was saying.
Talking over.
Yeah, it's okay.
All right. Yeah, we definitely need to do local recordings.
I've got 20 minutes on mine already, so I probably need to stop that and restart.
Yeah, restart it.
I'm going again.
I got some good people. That's a nice color, don't you think?
Yeah, it is.
Oh wow,
I love that.
I'm jealous.
It's called Nice People
Red Ale
Brewing. Well, it's a kind of an orange. It's a nice orange IPA, but it's not orange flavor. It's just orange colored because of the specialty malts.
Right,
but,
I'm ready.
Apparently they really like this beer, or the people that make it are very proud of it. Okay.
I was watching you guys on the YouTube channel coming in. He's being a little nushy today, isn't he?
So Dana, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Are you going to do the whole show with those things in your mouth?
No.
Good. Okay. Now let me.
There you go. They're out and happy. And I can pretty much talk normal.
I can't tell the difference. Put them back again. I'll see if I can spot.
No, I look like I look like a good yeoman.
There's no difference at all.
Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1, clap.
That was the real one.
I've got the clap.
Well done.
That's good. Better you than me.
Someone broke Jeff.
Well, thank you for waiting for me today. That's unusual.
You are welcome. Well, we kind of fooled around long enough. I thought, well, might as well just wait. And then Liz forced me to go get a beer.
Yeah, I rushed in here so fast I didn't even stop to pour myself an adult beverage. But I'll wait until I have a break.
There'll be time.
There will be time.
Okay, so did anybody see Liz's answer as far as whether Steph is going to join us or not? I don't remember.
No, I don't think she was.
Oh. Okay.
Because she's in Chicago.
Yeah, I know, but I don't remember having that conversation when we were talking about doing the date of recording, but oh well.
I think this is the only day, like Thursday, Friday was not good for her, or this weekend.
Okay. Oh well. All right. Got that going. By the way, Radio Roger, when he did his recording for our intro, thought, as I did, that I would be in Louisville, Kentucky. And I am not.
Don't worry, Jeff. No one can tell.
I know. It's just another hotel room.
It's just a hotel.
In fact, I probably shouldn't even have said anything. Okay. So I got the recorder going, and we're going to put this right here, and we're going to press this button. So Liz, about, let's call it 3:09-ish.
WAPG. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 380.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy show, the view from our side of the cockpit door, with your host, Captain Jeff, broadcasting live from Studio 3E at the Embassy Suites in Louisville, Kentucky. Today's show is recorded on the 21st of June, 2019.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy. Reaching by and he's flying by with the Airline Pilot Guy.
In today's episode, a United Airlines plane makes a hard landing at Newark, damaging the aircraft. And an Indian businessman gets life in prison for placing a fake hijacking note in a passenger jet's lavatory. More news, your feedback, and in today's Plane Tales, cloud suck. So get all settled in. Tray tables and seat backs in the upright and locked positions. Electronic devices powered on. I'm Radio Roger, and Flight 380 is ready for pushback.
Thank you, Radio Roger. He's a real-life radio professional in the biggest radio market in the world, New York City. Thank you for doing that. And you're listening to the Aviation Podcast, Airline Pilot Guy Show. And talk about airline aviation, all kinds of news like that. And we also answer your feedback. And joining me from across the pond in the English countryside, a professional photographer, former RAF fighter pilot, current captain, former captain for an international airline based in London, Captain Nick.
Hey, hi there, Jeff. Yes, thoroughly retired now. And I'm really looking forward to episode A380, the biggest civilian aviation podcast going.
I'm sorry, you must have misheard. It's episode 380, not A380.
But it's a 380, isn't it?
No.
Oh.
And also joining us. Sure, if you want it to be, let's make it an A380 episode. Okay, but we don't have any news items about the A380. Anyway, joining us from his studio near the Concord Covered Bridge in Smyrna, Georgia, barbecue master, motorcycle rider, pontoon boat skipper, underwater photographer, and captain for a major U.S. legacy carrier. It's Captain Dana.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm kind of jealous, actually, now that I'm sitting here looking at Nick on the photograph here, because he is looking nice and relaxed now that he's retired.
Oh, actually, I think he's busier than he was before he retired.
I know, but he's not doing all the time zones, so he looks so relaxed and no bags under the eyes and smiling and chipper and jovial.
Yeah, you're seeing something entirely different than I am. Anyway,
I've just got the rose-colored filter on my camera.
Well, how are you guys? Steph is apparently not going to be joining us today. Chicago. So doing some lecturing, and has nothing to do with classroom lectures. She's just going around lecturing people, telling them how bad they are.
Don't do that. That's bad for you.
Yeah. That's just the way Steph is sometimes.
She's teaching people how to stab people in the back.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that is true. Anyway, so let's move on to what we have been doing since the last episode. And let's
Jeff,
start
it's your
with...
turn.
Okay, I'll start. I've been flying a trip. When did we do our last one? Thursday. Let's see. Anything interesting over the weekend? No. Went out, or wait, did I do that? I don't remember what I did.
CRS. I can't remember stuff.
I'm just trying to remember if I did that Chicago green slip since the last show. Was that just this past? Yeah. Was that Father's Day last weekend?
Yes.
Hello. Where am I?
Yes. Yes. But I worked this past Sunday. It was Father's Day.
Thank you. Sunday. I ended up. My son wasn't home. He was up in Boston for a wedding, and so I said to my wife, I was getting contacted by Acme for doing a deadhead to Chicago and then fly back to Atlanta the next day, green slip. And I said, hey, since not everybody's here, why don't I just do this green slip, and then we'll just do my Father's Day dinner tomorrow night, on Monday night. So that's what happened. My son came home late on Sunday, and the entire family was together. We went over to a nice little place in Roswell called Hugo's, kind of an oyster bar / seafood restaurant, good stuff. And then went out on Wednesday for this 4-day trip. So I'm on day 3. First night in Jacksonville, the second day yesterday, Little Rock, and I was supposed to be in Louisville, Kentucky today, but was rerouted because of a little minor fiasco this morning in Little Rock, which I'm not going to go into. And so that kind of got me a little bit off track, and they didn't think we had enough time to make that Louisville break or the flight. So they grabbed somebody else off. In fact, the guy that was supposed to do this flight to Birmingham did the Louisville, and I did the Birmingham, although his co-pilot still did the Birmingham. It's just so messed up. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, so here I am in Birmingham, Alabama, and the weather is nice, very hot, but mostly clear skies, cloud here and there, but it's, I think, 92 degrees or something here. What is that in Celsius? Like 39, 35,
39.
35 is 95, so it's like 34 maybe, something like that. Anywho,
It's hot.
so yeah, it's hot. And I wanted to mention that I did see an APG community member who we'll see again, Oshkosh. His name is Jonathan Hardwick. Yes, Jonathan Hardwick. He flies for Spirit. And I was walking down the concourse and he said, "Hey, Captain Jeff." And I said, "Hey, you." And we talked for a while. And he said he's been listening to the show for a while and talked for a bit. And then we went off on our separate ways. And then he ended up giving us a nice contribution via the coffee fund. So we'll talk about him again when we do that segment. And what else? Oh, I got a very nice gift. I don't know if it was because I was talking about, or Steph was talking about her favorite pen, you know, that fancy pen that has the flashlight on it. And it has a tactile, you know, like a, what do they call it? Touch screen kind of knob on it thing, nib. And it's a ballpoint and all that kind of stuff. And Sean must have, from Crew Dog Electronics, must have been listening and sent me a Crew Dog. Oh, shoot. I was gonna have my prop. It's on my uniform shirt in the closet, but it's a nice, pretty blue. It's like pretty much the exact same pen that that Steph was talking about as her favorite pen. So thank you for that, Crew Dog Electronics. And that's about everything for me. So who wants to go next? Okay, Dana.
Nick.
No, Dana. Come on, Dana.
All right. I was on call this past week, and they used me every single day. I had a Memphis in Des Moines, and when I went to Memphis, there's a place in Memphis called Westies, just by the hotel that we stay. It's just about 2 blocks. Yeah, it's okay. But, you know, when you get in at 10 o'clock at night and you don't go out for 19 hours, what do you do?
Well, yeah, you just you don't want to go all the way down to Beale Street. It's too far at night.
No, not that late. So I end up actually getting contacted by a fellow listener that is a Acme pilot. He was in the crew room when I was dutying in, and he came over and said hello to me. So we were talking, and ironically enough, he was going to be coming to Memphis on the flight right after mine. So we had originally arranged to do lunch the next day, but I had texted him when we had arrived over there at Westies and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" So I had my FO, another FO that deadheaded in that knew the FO that I was flying with, and then this FO, David, and then his captain that came and joined us. And I'm sitting there thinking, I am the oldest guy in this group. I felt so old. So I can relate to some other people in the chat room here. No. So anyways, we had a very fun time there in Memphis and chatted. Then we went out for some Gus's chicken the next day in Memphis. If you're ever in Memphis, go to Gus's chicken. It's really, really good. A short overnight in Des Moines. Then, of course, I got notified of my next trip, which ended up with a fairly short layover in Pensacola. That was about a 12-hour layover. And when I was coming back in from Pensacola, I was supposed to do a Syracuse round trip. And crew scheduling had other plans for me, including taking my day off today and rerouting me to another trip. And that's when I said, "Hey, I have a day off day and I'm having oral surgery. I need to be off." And they said, "Yeah, well, guess what? We need you to work." I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, I'm going to have to take care of some business here." And I went ahead and went down to talk to some people in the chief pilot's office and said, "Hey, I got a surgery tomorrow and I've got to be there." So they were fortunate, and I was fortunate enough that they were able to work out a different situation in crew tracking and got me off the trip that they had put me back on my original with a nice delay up into Syracuse due to a delayed airplane from Baltimore, which had a right generator failure, and they had deferred it, and that's why the airplane was late coming in. And also, stepping back to Memphis, I had to have my second passenger that I've ever had to have removed after he yelled a few profanities at my flight attendant. Then as I went back, because our first class lavatory was in op, I went back to go to the restroom. As I walked by, the gentleman, I kind of wasn't sure that I heard it 100%, but he said a few choice words to me for no provoked reason other than I was walking by and commenting on my I'm not going to say what he commented on. Anyways, so I kind of thought I heard it, and he wanted to shake my hand. I just kind of brushed it off, gave him knuckles, because I don't shake people's hands, or at least try not to, because everybody knows what I think about the remote control in the hotel room, right? So, anyways, walked back by, and as I'm coming up to about first class, I hear him yell again. I had observed that he was probably under the influence, and I kind of ignored it at that point. Made my, of course, my introduction to my first class passengers, thanking them for their business. Went back up to the front of the airplane, and then the flight attendant had gone back. The lead flight attendant had started walking back there, and he again yelled profanity at her before she even got there. So I said, "That's it. This gentleman is off the airplane." And got the PSA involved, and he was removed. Then, when he got onto the jetway, was begging to not be removed. I looked at him. I said to him, "Sir, after what you've done, I am sorry. This aircraft will not be leaving with you on it." And that's how I left it and did some paperwork. So that was my interesting week.
Yeah, you're. I think you have 200%. Is this the second one that you've kicked off?
Yes.
Yeah, 200% more than I have.
I don't like it, but if people are going to sit there and be rude, obnoxious, and throw profanities at the customers,
Well, that's never happened with me.
Yeah,
that's another good reason for not flying later in the day, I guess.
Yeah, because at 6 o'clock in the morning, if somebody's drunk, usually they're still passed out.
Yeah,
not 2 o'clock in the afternoon when everybody's already been having lunch, happy hour, and both of them have been in the late afternoon at this point, and he was clearly, I don't even know if it was alcohol. I think it may have been even more than that. So he was really, really disruptive, and passengers all around him, again, were complaining.
Yeah.
So
sorry to hear you had the issue there, Dana.
Yeah. Well, I have to, my hat's off to Memphis. They did a great job. The customer service and the supervisor. I almost said something, but a certain color coat. But anyways, the supervisor, and then and I have to put my hats off. If anybody in Syracuse happens to listen to this, we landed in Syracuse last night. We had about 32 minutes to turn the airplane around, or my flight attendants were going to go illegal. So by the time we were able to board the aircraft, we only had about 19 minutes. I went up to the podium and made a PA, ladies and gentlemen. I would ask your cooperation to please board this aircraft as quickly as possible, because if we are not pushing off the gate or closing the door in 19 minutes, we will not be leaving Syracuse this evening. So amazingly enough, I think it was 60 something, maybe even 70 something military folks on the airplane. And of course, when they hear an order, they cooperate. And everybody got on the aircraft. It was completely full 90. So everybody got on, and we closed the door 3 minutes prior to their drop dead time. So that worked out well as well.
Excellent.
So it was a challenging week, 5 days of very challenging flying with some customer service issues involved.
Yeah, there was weather earlier in the week too that we had to deal with. Or at least I did.
I dealt with it all.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. All right, very good. Nicholas.
Yes, sir.
Are you still awake?
No, just about. No,
Okay.
It's fascinating listening to you guys and all the work you do, which I think is really good. Somebody has to do some work around here.
Yeah.
I'm very
Hush.
impressed. All I've done is sit around and drink beer. In fact, I'm much more like to be one of Dana's drunk passengers than I am anything else. So I have a lot
You know
of
what,
sympathy.
sir, sit down.
And sit down.
I think you've
Behave
had too
yourself.
much. You know what, Dana? I think we
Just-
need to take this guy off the show right
Because
now.
he's doing nothing. All he does is sit around, drink, and play with his balls.
But I'm done with the thing.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, sir.
But I have been keeping myself busy. I caught up with a lovely old friend of mine who was the chief photographer for British Aerospace Systems and specialized in fast jet air-to-air photography. And if there's two things that get me excited in this world, there are actually more than two, but these are two of them. It's photography from a fighter and of fighters. So Jeff Lee is his name.
Family show, ladies and gentlemen. Family show.
He was very kind. We've discovered we're living not far away, so he popped over and gave me an hour of his time to do an interview, which is coming up in a future Plain Tale. In fact, there'll be more than one, so that's great. Fascinating story. Lovely guy. Right. Number two, I did a little interview for a travel writer. And that was interesting. And if anyone wants to catch up with that, you can find it on a website called letsgosomewhereelse.co.uk. And the lovely lady was called Kirsten, and I think she's a very good writer and has some interesting, she's only a young lass, but has some interesting places she's already been to around the world and written about them, and has done some very nice photography. So if you're vaguely interested in that, then please take a look. Liz said it was a super article. I thought it was too, Liz. I thought that she did a great job.
I enjoyed it.
And I have a big apology to make because, of course, a lot of my Plain Tales are produced in relatively short time. And sadly, we don't have a proper fact checker on the APG. So all we do is we get retrospective pokes in the ribs from our listeners who spot our errors. Now, generally speaking, I try and keep Plain Tales above the 50% accuracy rate. But I recently did one which was sort of about my logbook. And yeah, I know it's sad, isn't it? About my logbook, sort of episode 3 or 4, I forget now. And I did mention that while flying the Phantom, we frequently used to do sorties against electronic jamming aircraft. And I said it was a Canberra, which was correct, but from 100 Squadron, which was incorrect. 100 Squadron were the target towing Canberras, and they used to do that kind of stuff, simulate bombers and that sort of thing. The people that used to do the jamming were actually 360 Squadron. Now, they were a combined Fleet Air Arm and Royal Air Force squadron in specialist Canberras, fitted out with all sorts of electronic jamming equipment. They were actually an interesting squadron, and they had a great motto, which was Confundimus, which sounds like a Harry Potter spell, I know, but means we shall throw into confusion. That's a very long translation from a single word, but there you go. And the squadron badge was in front of a trident erect, a moth wings displayed, which sounds a bit weird. The trident represented the Royal Navy. The moth wings displayed was an interesting moth, which had the ability to jam a bat's radar. You know, a bat has a little sends out little squeaks and then hears them and can fix the position of an insect and catch it. Well, this moth was capable of jamming a moth's squeaking radar sort of thing and decoy it. So I guess it wasn't a bad motto after all. And things. And Neil says in the chat room, isn't that the APG motto? We shall throw into confusion. Yes, very good one. Yes, perhaps we should have.
No, we live in confusion is our motto.
Exactly right. So I just wanted to offer my apologies and thanks to John Pickard, who picked up that a slip of the tongue. My memory isn't as good as it used to be.
Yes.
And
Gosh, Nick, how embarrassing.
And speaking of that, Nick, I my memory is not as good as it used to be either, because I was saying David earlier and it's actually Brian. That's bad.
Okay.
David who? Brian who?
Yeah, my FO, the FO, the listener that was listening to me. I said David because I didn't take a chance to look at my notes, and because you know how bad I am with names.
I thought you were talking about the drunk.
Nope. And Brian, please don't be mad at me. I just terrible. I'm terrible.
Brian, I would not let him off on that at all.
I'm going to text him right now and say I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, what I did today, the FO that I'm with now, the third FO on this trip, he said that he has his family with him on the jet, and I said, "Oh, good. Well, you should fly it then." And I said, "Do you want me to mention their names when PA?" And he said, "Oh, that would be nice." And so he told me their names, and he said his wife's name was Krista, and then there was I forgot what, Abby, I think, and then Chan, and I forgot what the last name was. And I thought he said they were all daughters, all girls, and I didn't realize until after the flight was into Birmingham today, and they came up to the front to have some pictures taken, and realized that Chan is not. I was kind of thought, I could see Chan maybe as a girl's name, maybe. Yeah, no, it was a guy, and. So I told him, I said, would you please apologize to your son? I didn't, because I think I said on the PA, your 3 daughters are with us today in the back of the airplane. So yeah, my bad. So I'm not very good with names either. So speaking of Jonathan Hardwick, earlier bumped into him, gave us a nice donation. He is from Memphis, and he said if we are ever there, Dana, to look him up, he'll show us around and give us the best that Memphis has to offer, and as far as food is concerned. All right. And Hillel has asked us to mention a couple of things. We're going to shift now to Oshkosh, and the folks that are going to Oshkosh, in an effort to coordinate all of the people that are going to be part of the Oshkosh thing and are also APGers. He has created a spreadsheet. First thing he's created is a questionnaire that you can fill out, and that basically fills in the spreadsheet. So these are 2 things. I'll put both of the URLs in the show notes so that you can first do the questionnaire if you're planning on attending Oshkosh. It basically says, when you're coming in, when you're leaving, where you're going to be staying, if you know, that sort of thing. So it's an effort to coordinate everything. And thank you very much, Hillel, for doing that. You did a great job with that. And also, I think at the end of the questionnaire, it has a question about whether you want to have one of the Osh Blast 2019 T-shirts. And then it gives you the address to use to contact Liz. And then she'll put you down on her spreadsheet. We have dueling spreadsheets. And she's keeping track of everybody that's going to be there at Oshkosh. So that's the best way to get your T-shirt. It's just one option, though. It's just you just tell us how many and what size, and it's just a classic unisex shirt, but it's cheaper than if you use Teespring. Now, if you're not going to join us at Oshkosh and you want to order one of the Osh Blast 2019 shirts anyway, you can use the link to Teespring. And also there's some other options there. There's a women's T-shirt. There's some tank tops and some different kind of T-shirts, like a comfort shirt and a premium shirt and that kind of thing. So it's a little bit more, but it is delivered to your home or your wherever you tell them to deliver it. And that's an option for you all who are not going to be able to make it to Oshkosh with us this year. So all that stuff is going to be in the show notes. And
Liz says 48 T-shirts ordered already.
Oh, good. Well, I'm hoping we get to at least 60 because that's what I told the printer, and that's how I derived the pricing. So we'll see. Brilliant. And even if we don't reach that threshold, we'll still hold to the price that I've said it would be. I think it's $12 for the shirt. And I think if you're going to order a plus size, which is like 2X, 3X, 4X size, they'll be $15, a little bit extra. And we will, the deadline, thank you, Liz. The deadline for ordering is basically the end of this month. Hopefully we'll have all those orders by then, and then I can send in the order to the local t-shirt company, and they can print those for us, and then we'll have the boxes of shirts in the car. Nick and I will take those up to Dayton, and then when we look at the U.S. Air Force Museum on Tuesday, the 16th of June, and July. That's it.
July.
No, June, July.
You need to retire, mate.
I do. I don't know what's wrong with me. I think these early mornings are really starting to get to me. July 16th.
That's assuming we haven't given them
And then
away
we're
to
gonna go from
homeless
there.
people on the way.
Then we're going to go on from there to Mokina, which is a suburban area of Chicago. We're going to pick up that nice RV and drive it up to Oshkosh. And we're planning on arriving in Oshkosh around either Wednesday or Thursday of the week before Oshkosh. So, and we're counting on all of you who are listening that are residents of Wisconsin, that are near Oshkosh, Fond du Lac, and all those communities up there. We may be asking you to help us out with certain things, like if you have some kind of a smoker, it would be really nice, because it'd be nice to smoke some meat and
cannabis,
or at least
things like that.
Well, we're not going to do the smoke. You can do that, sir. I cannot.
Yeah,
Dan, I
I'm
cannot
retired
do that.
now. I can do this stuff that I haven't
So
been
wherever
able
it's
to
legal,
do
you
for the
can do
last
it.
60 years.
I can't. Exactly, and I can't wait until I am retired myself. I want to roll one of those big old doobies up and figure out and eat some brownies and cookies and figure out what all these people are so happy about.
And the Dane is going to be in one of those homeless encampments in one of those big cities in the United States.
Yeah.
But whatever happened to that guy? He started smoking the weed, and I don't know.
He tried it out once. He's never done it in his life, and it's got to find out what's going on. But I won't do that until I'm retired. I promise.
Yes, of course. Okay, there you go. I'm sure I've forgotten something, but that's all I can think of at this moment. So I think now, unless you all have anything else to say before we move on to the coffee fund, that we should do that. All right, here we go.
Johnny, how much more coffee?
No thanks.
I love coffee. I love tea. I love the APG community. Coffee and tea, and the driver and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup.
The Coffee Fund is your way to support the show financially, if you have the resources to do so. And since the last episode, we've had several Coffee Fund Classic donations, which is PayPal. You can do a one-time or a recurring donation via PayPal. And we have Mark Anderson, Randy Ward, Terry Liu, Chris Randall, David Lieb, and Jonathan Hardwick, which I mentioned before with the $100 donation. Thank you. That's going to go a long way to provide, well, not a long way, but it'll provide some money for some good beers, I'm sure. And Jonathan, and I'm hoping that you'll join us in imbibing some of those with us as well. We also have another way to support the show via the Coffee Fund, and that is Patreon. You can become a patron of the show via patreon.com. And we have a couple of new producers, Richard Hennessy and Ritesh Patel. And student pilot Chris did the right thing. He heard us say, hey, if you're a student pilot, you need your money for flying lessons, right? So he downgraded. You did the right thing. He went from 5 to 1, but that's great. Thank you, student pilot Chris, for being part of our Coffee Fund Club. If you want to, please check it out by heading over to airlinepilotguide.com/coffee. You'll be glad you did. Nope, that's not the right one. There we go.
Stand by for news.
United Airlines Flight 627 landed at 1 p.m. on runway 22 left at Newark Liberty International Airport, then skidded off the left side of the pavement. The left main landing gear is stuck in a grassy area. The aircraft will be towed off the airfield after passengers leave the aircraft via stairs. They will ride buses to the terminal. No injuries were reported to the FAA. The FAA is en route to the airport to begin the investigation. Flights are delayed until the aircraft is moved. Contact the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey for more information on airport status. Contact United for information on passengers and damage to the aircraft. The flight originated at Denver International Airport. That was the official FAA notice when, or shortly after, United Flight 627 pranged it on at Newark 22 left. Apparently, witnesses say that the airplane landed very hard, the first touchdown on the main gear, and then it bounced. And then after the bounce, the aircraft hit very hard on the nose gear, something we call wheelbarrowing. And that did a lot of damage to the nose gear section. In fact, another passenger reported that the landing gear strut actually came up into the passenger cabin. So we don't have any new information regarding the accident. I guess it's more of a classified as an accident because of the amount of damage that was done to the airplane. And wow, that's all I can say is that must have been quite a landing to ride through.
Yeah, no indication whether it was a training trip or any handling problems. The weather doesn't look like it was a significant problem, more or less down the strip, gusting 10 knots, but 8 knots, not excessive. So I can only assume that something went a little bit awry on the flight deck.
Yep. Certainly does look that way. Of course, we don't know for sure. We're just using the information that we have at this point. But it certainly does look like a typical, just a little bit too hard on the landing, a bounce, and trying to salvage the bounced landing, and ending up doing significant damage to the airplane. This is one of those things when you look at some of the pictures here in the wrinkled skin and the quite a bit of damage to the front of the airplane that I'd be surprised if they were able to repair the airplane.
That's the first thing I thought of is that airframe's totaled.
I think so.
Yeah.
Certainly looks like it. So hopefully we'll hear more information about it. The NTSB, I believe, is going to investigate. I don't know if they said that in here or not. The FAA is investigating. I'm not sure about the NTSB. But if the NTSB does investigate, then we will learn more information about this.
One has to wonder if this is another one of those, newly minted pilots that's
might be
coming back into Newark, and depends on how they run their legs. But
yeah,
we don't know. I mean, we don't know, won't know until we have some more information. But that's my first thought.
That's wild speculation by Captain Dana.
Wild speculation.
Yes, wild. All right. Second thing we have in our news folder is this was a survey / study by two men from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. Let me see if I can find the actual part where it talks about their study. They say, in our study, we showed people trips of different lengths and asked them to choose whether they would rather drive themselves, take a flight, or ride in a self-driving car. In general, the data indicated that people always preferred driverless vehicles over manual driving. Taking a driverless car got even more attractive if people were told that after flying, they would need a rental car in their destination city. So basically what the study dealt with, and I guess the questions were asked, if driverless cars actually become a thing, which I don't think is going to happen anytime soon, especially driverless cars going from, let's say, Atlanta to Savannah, but they were using that as an example, I believe. So, you want to, and this is, I can understand this. Dana, if you and I were thinking about going to Savannah, I mean, I would really think seriously about driving instead of flying, because by the time you get down to the airport, go through security, wait for your flight, board the flight, take the flight, get into where you're going, and then if you have to rent a car, it's about, you're not saving a heck of a lot of time if you just got in your car and drove.
anything less than 300 miles within the radius of here is about equal to doing exactly what you're talking
and
about.
then when you already have your car with you, so you don't have to rent a car, so and we do that a lot in my family, and not only because of the distance, but also because we usually try to fly on standby, and a lot of times it's like you're not going to get on the airplane anyway, so you might as well drive. But I think I'd like to take, if I can reach for my BS flag here, I'm going to wave it. I think that this whole, basically what they're trying to say here in their survey is that driverless cars are going to disrupt the airline industry. I don't think so. I think that this is much to do about nothing, because I don't think that driverless cars are going to be a thing for quite a number of years. And even when they do become a thing, I'm not sure it's going to maybe make a slight disruption. Disruption, I think, is too big of a word to use.
It may
might be
draw a
blip.
little bit of traffic away, very little.
Yeah.
But there was I don't know if anybody knows, anybody in the States would know World News Tonight or NBC News, whatever it was. But they had a video of a guy that was in traffic in L.A. dead asleep for 30 miles behind one of those cars that drives themselves. That's really not good promotion for those types of vehicles, because
brilliant.
It's brilliant. Hey, let me just take a nap behind the wheel. It's really not designed to do it like that.
I think one of the early accidents in the Tesla involved a guy that was watching a movie or something and ended up crashing into a car that made a opposite direction left-hand turn right in front of it, or for you all in the UK, or right-hand turn. You know what I'm saying? Opposite direction, kind of turning right in front of you, and the car was going at like 80 miles an hour and didn't, because of the conditions. And I think there was an 18-wheeler, which is what do they call those in the UK? A lorry, a big truck, and something to do with the way the cameras were analyzing the situation at the time, and the car didn't see any problem with this other car like darting right in front of them, and it just broadsided that other car, and this guy died because he was watching some movie on his laptop or something in his car, because this driverless car was going to do just fine, keep them all nice and safe.
Absolutely. It's we're talking in the future here, and I'm just kind of hoping that the people in the airport industry will come up with a similar level of technology that allows driverless cars to streamline security, improve boarding, and make the whole airport process so much more simple, efficient, and enjoyable. Because that is the big thing for me. It's the complete hassle of getting through the airport. And if you can build a driverless car, then for heaven's sake, can't we get some better technology into our security and streamline the system? And I know they're going that way with face recognition, so that you just do one check, and from then on, as you progress through the airport, you're automatically recognized and allowed access to the places you should be allowed access to, which sounds great. We just need that to progress a lot faster and to get into every airport.
I agree. And now, the heck with driverless cars? What about all those vertical, like the big giant drones that carry people? That's going to be faster and more efficient than a driverless car, right?
It'll be much.
It's not going to happen either.
The environmental control on those things is amazing too.
Yeah. Okay.
I want my flying car.
Yeah, I'm kind of disappointed in myself that I did not play my Jefferson, not Jefferson,
Jetson.
What is it called?
Jetsons.
That's it, Jetsons. Anyway, I'll put that in
George
post.
Jetson.
Yes, you'll hear it if you listen to the audio on my show. Okay, item 3, or C. Indian man imprisoned for life after a fake plane hijack. An Indian businessman has been jailed for life after planting a fake hijacking letter in the toilet of a Jet Airways flight from Delhi to Mumbai. Now, how could anybody see if he put it in the toilet?
Well, they found the one that was in the toilet of one of my aircraft without any problem.
Well, see, because we say the toilet is the actual device where you urinate and defecate.
Well, if you're looking down to make sure you're hosing in a straight line, I suppose you could spot it.
As long as somebody hasn't flushed.
Yes, exactly.
But what would be the point of flushing the letter if you're trying to get somebody's attention? Well, anyway,
Good
I'm
point.
sorry, got off track there. So it was probably on the counter next to the sink, the lavatory sink. Burju Salah said he had hoped the air carrier would close its Delhi operations, and his girlfriend, a Jet Airways air stewardess, would have to move to live with him in Mumbai. That's some really smart thinking there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's way out of the box thinking.
Yeah.
He thought that one hijacking was going to close down Delhi operations, and his girlfriend would have to move to live with him in Mumbai.
You remember what I mentioned earlier about, getting a big doobie and lighting it up?
Yeah, I think
obviously he's already doing that.
He was also fined 50 million rupees, which is about $1.50. No, it's not much more than that. It's $720.
720,000.
Oh, 725. Oh, I'm sorry. It is a lot of money. Sorry.
Yeah, that is quite. That's like
Well,
$750,000.
Well, my joke. There goes my joke.
It did. It went down the toilet with that bomb warning.
Salah is the first person to be tried under India's new anti-hijacking laws. The legislation carries a minimum sentence of life imprisonment, and a death sentence at its most severe. Woo! They are not fooling around there.
They are not.
Dang. He confessed to writing and printing the threat note in his Mumbai office before the flight in October of... Oh, this is back in 2017. It said 12 hijackers and several explosives were on board and demanded that the flight be diverted into Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. He was arrested after the plane made an emergency landing in Ahmedabad. 483 miles from its intended destination. At the time, he was having an extramarital affair with an air stewardess from Delhi. Anyway, you get the point here. This guy was obviously off his rocker.
That's a hell of a punishment there. $750,000 and a life imprisonment for. Now they take it
for a girl.
Yeah, they take it seriously over there, obviously.
Yeah. Wow. That was an interesting one. Okay. So that should be
good thing this is a family show because a whole bunch of comments they could have just come out with.
I'm glad it is.
Well, yeah,
I'm not saying one word.
All I'm going to say is that on a serious note, an airline gets multiple bomb warning threats a month, most airlines. So if every one of those was investigated and they found the culprit, there could be an awful lot of people with life sentences wandering around in various countries.
Yes. This is true. It's true. That's true. Last item, Boeing's latest 737 MAX concern, pilot's physical strength. This is from the Wall Street Journal. Efforts to get Boeing's 737 MAX jetliners back into the air have been delayed in part by concerns about whether the average pilot has enough physical strength to manually crank a flight control wheel in extreme emergencies. The concerns have made the wheel and its crank used to move the horizontal stabilizer or on the plane's tail the focus of engineering analysis. Simulator sessions and flight testing by the plane maker and U.S. air safety officials, according to people familiar with the details. I thought that sentence was going somewhere else. The extent of the internal debate hasn't been previously reported. Use of the crank, the manually activated method of trimming the pitch on the 737 and other Boeing airplanes like the 727. I remember that. Let's see. To adjust it can help change the angle of the plane's nose. Yeah, sort of. Under certain conditions, including at unusually high speeds with the panel already at a steep angle, moving the crank can take a lot of force. Among other things, the people familiar with the details said regulators are concerned about whether female aviators, who typically have less upper body strength than their male counterparts, may find it difficult to turn the crank in an emergency. The analysis could then have even wider significance because the same emergency procedure applies to the generation of the jetliner that preceded the MAX, known as the 737 New Generation NG. About 6,300 of these planes are used by more than 150 airlines globally, and they are the backbone of short and medium-range fleets for many carriers. Okay, so, and again, the guy, the Blancalirio channel, Juan, I can't remember his last name, right off the hand. Anyway, he does a really good job of explaining this in one of his videos. Again, you should subscribe to his video channel where he talks about the mechanics of how this works. And One of the problems with the Ethiopian accident is that after the pilots set takeoff power, and in this case it was 94% N1, they left that power setting. They never pulled the power back. It stayed at takeoff power the entire 6-minute flight, including when it just went right down into the ground, nosedived into the ground. And one of the problems with the procedure of using manual trim to try to retrim the airplane is that the faster you go, the more air loads are on that stabilizer, and you get to the point where that mechanical wheel, nobody, I mean, I don't care if you're Arnold Schwarzenegger or whatever the big bodybuilder person is these days, if you have an amazing amount of arm strength or upper body strength, you're not going to be able to move that. You have to slow the airplane down. You have to somehow get the airplane to a lower level, the air loads off the stabilizer to actually move that manual trim wheel. And the other thing that's interesting, and again, Blancolirio talked about this, is that the size, the diameter of that wheel has over the generations of 737s has decreased in size. And so, as we all know from just basic mechanics, physics, you know the arm, the motion, the moment arm, or whatever, it's easier if it's a longer arm. If you have a smaller wheel, handle that cranks out and you're trying to crank that thing, the harder it's going to be. More force is going to be required to have the same action. And in the 727, I remember that wheel was a pretty darn big wheel. And I guess the 737, it kind of shrank a little bit, or shrunk. And then the latest MAX, it even shrunk further. And I think they're really taking a good look at whether or not that's sufficient to handle a situation, even if you have the air loads down to a reasonable level. So that's what the regulators are looking at right now. And so some people might think that this is like again denigrating female pilots, and I don't think that's what the point of this is. It's just basically one of those things where, in general, you compare a same size male to a same size female, age, etc. In general, the upper body strength is going to be a little bit greater. The capacity for that strength is greater in a male. Although I have flown with some first officers, other pilots that I don't think probably would have that much upper body strength. In fact, I know somebody who is a strength training junkie, IPA connoisseur, marathon runner, skydiver. Yeah, you all know her, Dr. Steph. I know that her upper body strength, I'm sure, is a lot more than a lot of the people that I've flown with. And so that's not to say anything against female pilots, but it's just something that they're taking a look at. Basically, the strength, power required to actually manually activate that manual trim wheel in the Boeing product. But again, in the case of the Ethiopian thing, I don't care how strong you are, or you would not been able to manually trim or move that wheel. It would have been like cement. Nick and I were talking about this before we recorded the show today. I asked him if there was, in the Airbus family, especially talking about the upper body, there's really nothing that requires a lot of strength, is there?
No, you need a bit of leg strength if you're holding 2 dead engines and you haven't trimmed it. But no, we are in upper body, none at all. And there's, to my knowledge, there's never been a test required for any airliner on physical strength. So it's not like it's a medical requirement to pass. You'd only ever find out if you were in the simulator and the simulator accurately demonstrated exactly the forces that you're going to get on this trim wheel in the circumstances that they were in. I think you covered that very well and very fairly, Jeff.
I think so. I mean, it's not to say anything against, because of this, I don't think that females should be allowed to fly the 737 product, which is not what I'm saying.
No.
But it's something that they're taking a look at. And then this reminds me of airliners of the past. The one that comes to mind immediately is the DC-8. That airplane, I never flew it myself, but I've heard from other people that have, that they said that the controls on that were not like flying an airplane with power steering. I mean, you had to, and I hate to use the term manhandle, but you had to really use a lot of upper body strength to even turn the airplane and to activate the or to climb and to descend when you're manually flying the airplane. It took a lot of physical strength. And the other thing that I recall requiring a lot of physical strength is on the 727 when we went to manual reversion, which is the state of the airplane when you lose all your hydraulics to your control surfaces. We used to do this on test flights after it's gone through some maintenance. You might get called in to go on a maintenance flight and go up for a couple of hours. And what some of the things that we would do is like shut down engines, restart engines. We'd go to manual reversion. And let me tell you, having actually flown a 727 in manual reversion, it was not easy. And I was much stronger than I am now. And I was having a heck of a time trying to keep that airplane straight and level because of the fact that there wasn't any hydraulics to the hydraulically controlled surfaces. So, and the 141, another airplane that did require quite a bit of strength to move the controls. So, I think in today's world with today's modern airliners, unless you're in an emergency or abnormal situation like this 737 MAX thing, it's not, I don't think, that big of a necessity to have, very high physical strength in your upper body. That's just my.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah.
You just summed it up. First off, on our airplane, where is our manual trim wheel? He just froze. Yeah, he just froze.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't hear a thing you just said, but I'm sure it was great.
I know. I said, on our airplane, where's our manual trim wheel?
We don't have a manual trim wheel.
So the 737 and everything you just pointed out, the 727, the DC-8 and everything else, it just proves one point. The 737 has not been redesigned. It's very antiquated. I think it should be more of a modern design that they don't need to have a elevated trim wheel, but they just haven't taken it to the next level. What they've done is they've just played with the original design and tried to make it a better airplane, and unfortunately they haven't.
And that is Dana at airlinepilotguide.com for all your complaints. That's one perspective, one opinion. Yeah. So
it's not a popular opinion, but it's the way I feel about it.
Yeah, well, I don't think they're going to be designing anything different in the airplane until the 737s are all not flying anymore. So, I'm not sure what the 767, 757, 777, 787 systems are like, if they have that same kind of redundant mechanical backup kind of trim system. And again, it's a backup system. It's not a primary pitch trim system. So, I think I'd rather have a manual backup system than nothing at all, like our airplane. But
we do have backups in our airplane, though.
Well, we do, but it's not a mechanical backup per se.
No, it's the only part of our airplane. It's not a direct cable.
Yep. So yeah, we could talk about this for hours, but good points made, and just thought we'd mention that article. But again, I've flown with several female pilots that probably have more upper body strength than I have. So I'll just leave it at that. Okay. I think that's enough from our news folder. Oh, you know what? Just quickly, I noticed something right before we started recording the show I thought was kind of amusing. And it was an article. Let's see. Let me grab it here. This is from the Business Insider. And unfortunately, it's United Airlines again. It says in 2006, we got snakes on a plane. The film in 2019, we get ants on a plane. The reality for some passengers on a recent United Airlines flight. Apparently, on Monday, a swarm of ants crawled out of a passenger's carry-on bag and caused quite the commotion on a United Airlines flight. Reports of the ants on the flight to Newark from Venice began to circulate after Charlotte Burns, a senior editor in Other Words, described her experience in a thread on Twitter. She said that ants spill out, running in every which direction. This is absolutely heebie-jeebie, goosebumpy, get me a gin gross. She wrote of the moment of discovery. In a statement provided to Insider, a United Airlines spokesperson said that the ants were contained to a limited area of the cabin. But according to NBC New York, the bugs traveled throughout the aircraft, even reaching first class. The airplane landed at Newark and has been taken out of service for extermination. I think they mean bug extermination, not the airplane. And let's see, United said in a statement, we followed proper protocol by notifying customs, immigration, as well as agriculture of the illegal immigrant ants. No, they didn't say that. Actually, I added that. So wouldn't that be fun? Somewhere in flight, all of a sudden, you look down and you're being swarmed by a bunch of ants. I guess they weren't fire ants. That would be a big problem. But these ants, I don't think were biting type of ants. All right, that's it. I think now.
As long as they don't get in your pants.
Yes, you don't want ants
in the pants.
That could be very uncomfortable. All right. With that, it's time for one of the best parts of their show, which is your great feedback.
Captain, incoming message.
Break?
Yeah, I have a drinking problem, just like my passenger.
Yeah.
Yeah, time for me to get one.
I'm good, but you guys...
I'm just going to take a quick physiological.
I'll be right back.
I'll be right.
I'll continue my argument with Micah.
Uh-oh. What are you guys doing? What are you
really
arguing
an
about?
argument? No.
Huh?
It's not an argument. Don't worry. We're good.
Now you have my
attention.
Yeah. You talk. Max. Okay, I don't want to talk about it. Hello.
Hello. I'm an absolute mess. So
Well, that goes without saying.
Not only have I hurt my back this week, my left knee is out, and now my numbness is starting to wear off and I'm noticing how many teeth mark I have inside my gums.
How many what?
Teeth mark inside my cheek.
Oh, you're like biting your cheek?
I keep on biting it because it's numb.
Oh.
So I'm going to take 800 milligrams of ibuprofen with some water.
And a fifth of bourbon.
No, see, I'm drinking water.
Okay.
Why don't you believe me? I'm drinking water. I swear to God. I'm taking 800 milligrams of ibuprofen. I can't drink anything else.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I'm about to put something to help coat my stomach.
Ah. Sounds like a lot of ibuprofen to me. 800?
Yeah, it's prescription strength.
It's like what, 4 200 milligram
That's
I do my
exactly
math
it.
right.
But doctor wants me taking it to stave off any of the.
Okay. Well, quit biting your cheek.
I'm
Dan.
trying not to.
Okay.
I sound funny. Now, where do I put this so I don't spill it on my computer?
Can't help you.
Although it's water, will evaporate
You need
quick.
to have your computer on like stilts so that, like beach houses, so if the water or beer level comes up, it doesn't affect the computer.
Well, actually, my computer is. I don't know if I can get it. See, I've got it covered, the screen covered, so I'm not looking at it. But I put the towel down below on the keyboard, so if anything spills, it will not go straight into my keyboard.
Okay.
But yeah,
thank you.
I have a computer. I have a computer screen up here, so I'm looking more than I'm looking at the computer. I mean, that's the screen. You guys.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you, Liz. She's taken into account our brief physiological break. And let's see. What was I doing here? Let's go over to...
You were doing the APG show, and you're in charge.
Oh, that's scary. Really is. Okay. Let's start with the first piece of feedback. And this is some audio feedback from our good friend, Miami Hick.
This is Miami Hick. A little bit of feedback on feedback and some news from a couple. I hate to point out when y'all are wrong, but y'all got something way wrong when y'all was talking about those signs that say that traffic laws are enforced by aircraft. And I was disappointed. Captain Jeff ought to know this. How that works is the Mad Dog pilots are supposed to look down while they're up in the air flying. If they look down and see a car passing them on the road, they're supposed to call that in. But they did away with it because all you got to do is like 50 to pass a Mad Dog while it's flying. So y'all got that wrong. And there was a news story about the hitting the button for the emergency exit, and they thought they was going to the bathroom. You know, I did that one time too. I was drunk and I had to go to the bathroom, and I accidentally hit the emergency exit, and emergency slide popped out. And let's just say I turned that thing into a slip and slide. I enjoyed it, but the passengers that followed me down the slide weren't too happy with me. And oh, it was so embarrassing because all the passengers just couldn't believe their captain would act that way. But, you know, I was drunk. What do you want me to do? And that news story about that 105-year-old that took a flying lesson, the first thing I thought when I heard that was, I thought Captain Nick already knew how to fly. I'm Hick. Over and out.
I added the rim shots.
He's very even-handed with his
I like the way he
sideways compliments.
Although, I don't know. I always seem to get the short end of the stick, so to speak. So that's always I love it. Thank you very much, Brent, for sending that in. Always great to have some good humor from you. This one didn't have any, but you know, sometimes you have some that are funny. No, I'm just kidding. That was funny. Item number 2. This is from Anonymous. Hello, APG crew. I listened with interest to the segment on .com call signs in episode 375. I thoroughly enjoy electronically spotting aircraft in my area and have learned quite a bit about aviation in the process. I've spotted over 40,000 unique aircraft in the last 2 years and typically spot around 2,500 flights a day. Wow. That's a lot of flights. I had not previously heard about the DCM call signs, but as you surmised, the obfuscation is not effective for those who are using their own equipment to receive ADS-B signals. All ADS-B transmissions contain a 6-character code that uniquely identifies an aircraft. This is true worldwide. In the US and many other countries, it's trivial to correlate this code with the aircraft registration. The aircraft call sign is also transmitted with the ADS-B out and would typically have the aircraft registration number for a private aircraft. Replacing this with a DCM call sign does not prevent one from identifying the aircraft from the 6-character code. On the other hand, if you wish to track aircraft using one of the online web services, this is effective for disguising your identity. Of course, I have limited area, or I'm sorry, let me try that again. Of course, I have a limited area in which I can spot airplanes, typically up to 220 nautical miles, But ironically, the use of a DCM or .com call sign, now that I'm aware of it, would tend to put an aircraft on my radar. Pun intended. Very clever. Anonymous, thank you for that little bit of feedback from an expert plane spotter.
That's
cool.
a lot of flights. I'm assuming he doesn't physically spot them. In other words, use a pair of binoculars to read off the registration. I'm guessing this is sort of a form of electronic spotting.
I think so. Yeah, using the ADS-B setup that he has.
Yeah, and I guess that is also very true, because I've got a friend up the road who does a similar sort of thing. He feeds the ADS-B into the system of Flight Radar 24, I think, and he gets the unadulterated, the raw data. So that would be unaffected. It is interesting, though, isn't it?
Yeah, because I don't think it's encrypted. I think it's unencrypted, just like our ACARS messages and other things that we send down to Terra.
Which I've always found a bit strange. I would have assumed it would have been pretty well protected, but there you go.
I guess when they came up with the technology, at least for the like ACARS, nobody ever dreamed that anybody would be, hacking and listening to or intercepting these messages. But
yeah, good point.
Not the world that we're living in today. Item 3, Stephen writes, or does he send in some audio feedback?
Audio.
Hey, APG Cruise, FO Steven here. Heard my name mentioned last week during the news segment regarding the CRJ issue with having GPS signal and all that. I was fortunate enough not to be working when this first happened, but the company I work for sent out a lot of bulletins regarding what was going on and what all was going on with the fleet. So I've got some information I want to share with you, and then what we're doing to help mitigate this issue. Well, my company specifically, I don't know what everybody else is doing. I would hope they'd be doing the same thing. But so here is what was supposedly the issue that is causing the GPS problem with the CRJ. So last week, U.S. government sent out the regularly scheduled Almanac update with the leap second included. Following the Almanac update, affected GPS units weren't able to track satellites in the GPS constellation. Collins determined that a software issue with certain transponder, FMS, GPS receiver equipment / softwares were unable to interpret the leap second update that occurs every 2.5 years by the U.S. government GPS satellite Almanac update. So basically, most, if not almost all, of the CRJs that have this certain transponder / FMS combination, the software that was currently installed on them did not interpret the leap second update correctly, which basically means they're not able to track the satellites. So this caused basically the aircraft not to have a GPS signal. Now, for my company, we have a couple combinations when it comes to how we've got our FMS and transponders with ADS-B set up. Most of the 200 series aircraft still have the older FMS transponder combinations, so it's still those still work by what I understand. Now the newer, the 2, 7, and 900 series that have the updated FMS and transponders with ADS-B functionality in them, those are the ones that are having an issue. Now, the ones that do have the dual FMS in them, and the company that I work for was able to basically disable one of them, and then they are changing out the software / transponders to allow for GPS to work how it's supposed to without that, except the new update. So basically, we have the last I heard, there were all but like 50 of our CRJ aircraft that hadn't been modified to be able to operate with just the single GPS. And there's a bunch of little details about how we did that that I'm not going to go into. But basically, if you do have an aircraft that hasn't been updated, they were directing you to revert the FMS back to the an auto tuning mode, and that basically uses VOR DME signals to navigate off of. So essentially, what the MD88 does with its RNAV triangulation of the VORs and DMEs. So still able to navigate, which is a good thing. I did work this weekend. I had a 3-day trip. The first 2 days, all my aircraft had already been updated, so there wasn't really an issue with them. Per the note we had from the company, that we did put everything in the auto anyway, just in case the GPS signal was lost. We wouldn't have an issue. The last day, though, the last plane we had not been updated, so we were strictly VOR DME, which posed a couple different issues. One, you can't do any kind of RNAV, arrival, departure, or approaches. So reminding ATC that we're not able to do those. Do those types of arrivals, departures, and stuff. And then it's basically a degraded navigation, not which can cause issues if you're in airspace. But when we took off, it had the system automatically knew where it was at once we engaged the togas and everything like it's supposed to. And then once we got going, I was hand flying, and I went to intercept our course out, joined it, and once we got going, we got the autopilot on. The plane kind of fished, so it was going right, left, trying to find itself where it was at and everything based off of the VOR it was reading off of. And it finally got that. So it was doing fine, but the whole flight, it would drift a little bit side to side. It wasn't, just straight level, no movement like I'm usually used to. And then the other thing was when ATC was, giving you directions or clearances, they give you a lot of intercept. So they give you a VOR to intercept a radial off of, and then you have to throw that in the FMS and, figure out the intercept and all that. So, but other than that, it really wasn't that big of a deal. I know the bulletin they put out to us, there are been some issues where the FMS is confused in which mode it needs to be in. So it'll be in a heading mode or approach mode instead of the navigation mode. And it requires you to kind of reset itself and all that. But that's really the only thing I've heard, aside from some people taking it upon themselves trying to figure out how to fix the issue the first couple of days. Before the company kind of figured out what was going on, I had a buddy. They elected the flying green needles, which is strictly a heading off of a navigational radio frequency, and they got off pretty good bit while they were in cruise, but they tracked it back in and resolved that. But other than that, that's all I've got for you regarding this GPS Collins issue. Also, it doesn't give us a time frame of when everything will be back to normal. So anyway, hope that is some good information for everybody that was wondering what exactly the problem was. And hope everybody's doing okay. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Stephen, for the input. As we said, there's got to be somebody out there that listens to our show. We knew that it was Stephen that would send us some audio feedback regarding that. And one of the most recent things that I read regarding this whole thing, they did correct the almanac, or put the updated almanac to the satellite array, taking care of that leap second. And the Rockwell Collins people said that fixed about 50 to 60% of the units out there, which still leaves a lot of units that have not been fixed, and now they have to actually physically send the units to Rockwell Collins for them to fix them so they'll work right into the future. So that's going to have a major impact on airplane fleets out there that use this Rockwell Collins. What do they call it? The 4000 GPS 4000S.
Yeah, certainly. It's an interesting progression in these navigation systems. The aircraft I flew before GPS used to input all the various forms of navigation into a filter, a Kalman filter, which would give a level of accuracy to each, whether it be an NDB, DME, which is the most accurate, or VOR angles. And then it would apply the errors that the inertial navigation system were building up over time and filter that and produce an aircraft position, which was a combination of all those things. And if one of those systems dropped out, like you weren't in range of DME, then it would use the next best. And if everything fell out, then you were just on pure uncorrected inertial. But all the errors that had been noticed on your inertial systems during the flight would continue to be applied. So it wouldn't suddenly say, right, well, the inertial's correct. It would still apply the bias. Now, when GPS was introduced, that obviously gave you another input into that algorithm, that navigation computer, which was obviously the most accurate. So it was just another way, but the bias for GPS was very high. Now, it surprises me a little bit just listening to Steve's comments. Take the GPS out of the route, out of the system. There should still be sufficient navigation aids in there to give you an accurate position. And I don't understand why the aircraft should hunt, why it should find it should be following perhaps the slight variations in a VOR needle or something. So that bit, I'm not too sure why it would be doing that.
Well, I flew an airplane for many years of my career, 10 to be exact, the 727. They did not have a flight management system or flight management computer, and it didn't have RNAV capability either. We used VOR DME courses, and we used our chart and said, okay, this is the crossover point, so this is the radial that we fly out, and at this point we move over to the next navigational aid and put that inbound course in. And now you could, on that airplane, when the autopilot was connected, hook up track the VOR course, but it did that hunting, as you talked about, and it didn't fly a nice straight track. It was just always seeking, because those ground-based navigational signals don't always give you a nice clean signal. Sometimes they just like an ILS. And so what we would do was we'd never connect the VOR tracking feature. We would always use heading. So we were always constantly making minute adjustments to our heading based on the winds to keep on the course. And that provided for a nice, solid, smooth flight for everybody on the airplane. So there was none of this, wandering around kind of thing, trying to find the signal. And another thing it did was it really kept you in the game. You always knew where you were. And if you didn't, air traffic control would ask where the heck you are, what you're doing, where you're going, why are you not turning, that kind of thing. They were always watching us on radar. You always knew where the winds were coming from, because you were always making those little slight corrections with your heading and heading select mode. So those are the old days of flying ancient navigation system airplanes. And I think that maybe today's pilots that are not used to flying that kind of navigation system, and when they are in a situation like Stephen's airline is, with those not faulty units, but the situation they were in, have never experienced that. And that's why maybe he was kind of bewildered why the airplane wasn't giving you a nice straight
Yeah,
track.
very good point. Pip in the chat room says without a GPS, his aircraft is totally lost.
Yeah, doesn't it also affect like some other systems in the airplane? We were talking about some of the GPS interference things, and specifically certain airplanes, some corporate airplanes out there that use GPS for stabilization or something can go out of control or something ridiculous. It is bonkers.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll clarify, but yes, you're
Yeah.
right. I personally think that airplanes should have multiple layers of degradation, so that if you lose one system, the thing should be perfectly able to operate on something else, because otherwise it's not a very commercially viable aircraft. If your entire fleet suddenly gets grounded because there's a GPS output, how are you going to make money? You need to have an
You're
airplane
not.
that yeah, exactly. You need just on a commercial footing, you need to have an aircraft that can operate on a downgraded system.
Makes you shake your head, right?
Can the Airbus do that, Nick?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. I thought it could. I mean, I'm not insulting, but I thought it could.
Yeah, the GPS is just one input to the navigation system.
And Jonathan in the chat room says, yep, when I was at NetJets, we would lose our entire Phenom fleet when the Navy was messing with the GPS system.
Oops.
Yeah, that's not good.
Do they charge the Navy when that happens?
Well, they're either going to shoot you down or mess up your navigation system.
Oops. Yeah, don't go near that shit, mate.
Oh, hey, speaking of degraded. Wow, what kind of word was that? Degraded.
It's an American word.
Yeah, degraded systems. No, you're the ones that add the extra syllables. Syllables. Yeah. So one of the things that happened this morning, Rock, before I even got to the gate, two mechanics were there walking toward me and looking right at me. And I'm thinking, well, this is not good. They don't normally seek you in the concourse itself as you're walking toward the gate. And I go, yeah, so let's say hypothetically you have an airplane that you're supposed to fly to Atlanta that we've been here to fix overnight, but we couldn't because the local contracted ramp workers here didn't bother to come in to escort us to the airplane so we could fix your airplane. And the problem is our airplane has two autopilots and they're both not working. So basically it means that we don't have autopilots. And I said, well, if you're asking me if I'm willing to take the airplane to Atlanta without an autopilot, I said, yeah, I'd love it, actually. That would be a lot of fun. And they kind of looked at me a little bit strangely, like a lot of people do. And he said, so you don't have a problem with flying the airplane without an autopilot? I said, no. So, okay. And talked to the dispatcher, and he said, it was like a sigh of relief. Oh, thank God. Yeah, good. I got you at 27,000 feet because we can't go into the RVSM airspace without an autopilot. At least you're not supposed to. And so we flew to Atlanta and flew the whole way. It was only a 1 hour and 2 minute flight from takeoff to landing in Atlanta. A little bit longer because we were landing west. And it reminded me how much concentration and how nice it is to have an autopilot, especially when you're cruising up at higher altitudes. Although I think the Mad Dog is probably the easiest airplane that I've flown to fly at altitude. I mean, the 727 and the L-1011 especially were really difficult they're very sensitive up at the higher altitudes to keep right on your altitude. You know, you'd vary 50 feet, maybe 100 feet, then back around. But the Mad Dog, if you have it all trimmed up properly, pretty much is pretty solid, and it was pretty easy to do. But just the things like, putting your shoulder straps on, your shoulder harnesses, and doing things like that when you're hand flying an airplane is much more difficult, especially when you're up at altitude or you're at the higher levels, where just a couple of moments not touching the controls can lead the airplane to start banking or getting off course or exceeding the descent rate that you want, whatever. So, but anyway, it was a lot of fun. And I'm glad that I got a chance to do that. I would do that a lot more often, honestly, if it didn't mean it wasn't so much work for the person who was monitoring, because that is a lot of work when you are in a situation like this and the pilot monitoring has to really constantly monitor everything, a lot more than they normally do when the autopilot's flying, if that makes sense. So.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, I couldn't imagine a problem operating without an autopilot, except for the problems you stated. There are airspace where you physically can't take your aircraft without one.
Right.
I've flown a 340 all the way back from Hong Kong without auto thrust, and it's not the same, obviously, because the airplane's still maintaining its attitude and altitude and heading, etc. But one of you has to be continually on the controls, because you can't, even just for a short while, ignore what the aircraft is doing. And it does take a lot more concentration. You just physically, you can't really even have a meal without putting the other guy in control of the aircraft.
Right.
You can't do anything. So it was actually considerably more tiring, and that's just an auto thrust problem, let alone an autopilot problem.
Right.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm with you, Jeff. I mean, the opportunity to fly the airplane, hand fly the airplane, I spend a lot of time, even in climb and descent, normally just hand flying the airplane. So the opportunity to fly it the whole way, unless it's a high workload environment, i.e. if you went into the Northeast, you're going to do it for 2-3 hours. I might think otherwise, but on a short flight like that, absolutely, it's an absolute joy to fly that airplane by hand.
Yeah. Nico says he flies a 7.3, I believe. I believe the 7.3, 7.2s are a little bit harder to fly up at altitude than my experience with the Mad Dog. And the other thing, to Nick's point regarding the autothrust system, we had an airplane on the first day of our trip, and it was my first officer's leg, and he kind of goes, "Oh, now I know why you wanted me to fly this leg." Of course, I had no idea that the airplane we were going to fly didn't have autothrust. And I said, "I'll fly it if you want to," because I said, if you'd noticed, that's kind of the way I fly the airplane a lot, with the auto throttle system off. And he goes, no, I'd like to do it. I said, okay. And he said, just remind me that when we get up to cruise, to pull the power back. And I said, okay. Enough. We to cruise, and we're also used to the auto thrust system, pulling the thrust levers back to adjust the speed and not go right through your maximum Mach. And the airplane started accelerating. I said, "Hey, the throttles." They go, "Oh yeah, see, I told you to remind me. I knew this was going to happen." But you're not used to doing that. It's not something that is natural. All right. So anything else to say about backup navigation systems, satellite systems, hand flying, all that kind of stuff, or should we move on to Ivor's feedback?
I think we probably covered that.
Okay. Item 4, Ivor. So I say, hello, all you APG podcast presenter types. So the vexed question of passengers bringing bags of the aircraft in an emergency situation. What do we do? Armando on the Outstanding PTUK podcast made a fair point about passenger behavior in stressful situations. So I think or should that be the airline industry, needs to change people's behavior for their own good. And a good starting point would be to put it into the pre-flight safety demonstration. No luggage to be taken off the aircraft in an emergency evacuation. Also put it on the safety cards. I think it would take years, but eventually it might seep into the flying public's thick skulls. Obviously, a major problem with this is that the average dim-witted passenger ignores the safety talk video, but it is a serious problem. My overriding worry is that I'm in an emergency situation. I studiously leave my carry-on bag in the overhead bin, make my way to the nearest exit, slide down the emergency slide, and just as I reach the bottom, thinking all is well, I receive a concussion-inducing blow to my head from a high-quality hard-shell case. And yes, the person behind me is safe, but also has access to personal belongings. Hurrah. Yours, a slightly concerned Ivor. May your chemtrails be fruitful. I believe, and Dana, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Acme safety briefing does, I don't know if it's always included the sentences in there that say, do not take your carry-on luggage with you in an evacuation, or if it's something that has just recently been added. I can't really say with surety. But one of the last times I was on and I was listening to the briefing, and I believe it does say it in our cards as well. It does mention that, and maybe they've been saying it for years. I just hadn't noticed it, and that's not a good thing, right? Maybe nobody notices it.
Probably, like most regular flyers that are out there fly all the time. if you were to ever sit in the cabin and look to see who's paying attention, usually not too many people are, unfortunately.
No, you're right.
The announcement's so repeated, or it's mundane, and it's continuously the same message over and over and over, that people that have that fly on a fairly regular basis kind of brush it off, I think.
Yes.
And I hate to say it, but I'm part of that crowd. No,
Well, it's like one of those things where you hear it over and over and over again. It's hard to pay attention to it, right?
Right. Yeah. So it's repetitive. I think that's the right word, repetitive.
Now, a lot of airlines in the last few years have been trying to get really cutesy with the safety briefings in an effort to make people pay attention. But then I think it's maybe gone too far in the wrong direction, and people are not really getting anything out of it except entertainment, not really paying attention to the really serious
that's one
issue.
of Nick's pet peeves.
Yeah. Nick?
Yeah.
Okay. Nick?
Ooh, Jeff's pet peeves.
Sorry.
Not quite there, but
yeah, I'll have to make one for you.
Thank you for the attempt. I agree with you, Dana. I think, it needs to be emphasized. We need to make a particular point of it. And I also very much agree with Dana's idea that we should be allowing cargo hold baggage on the aircraft free and charging for overhead bags, because that would put more luggage into the cargo bay and give us less of a problem. But there you go. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for that endorsement, Nick. I think it would be a fantastic idea, because it's going to eliminate of course, the biggest threat, and that's the safety threat. Either when passengers are stowing or pulling bags out, hitting other people, and or in the case of an emergency, obviously, evacuating the airplane, as we saw that Russian incident, right? So, far less bags on the airplane equals, and if it's just a small carry-on, like what most people carry, like a computer bag or such, that's going underneath the seat, or it takes up a whole lot less room in the overhead. So, in God forbid, in case of an emergency evacuation, people trying to grab their rollerboards, I mean, people are not going to listen. I'm thinking, logically, if somebody's going to grab something, they grab their computer bag underneath their seat as they're running off the airplane. It's going to take them microseconds to do that versus the seconds it takes them to go ahead and grab a rollerboard from the overhead bin. So I'm not endorsing people doing that, obviously, but people that don't listen and are going to insist upon taking their personal property off the airplane, if it's checked in the bin, underneath the airplane, they can't get to it. They're getting off the airplane, and whatever they grab is right there. It's real quick access. So, it's multifaceted. The reason why I think that we should be doing it completely opposite.
Yeah. Good luck in convincing the people that actually make those decisions.
Yeah, I mean, and of course, there's the exception to the rule, and that is, if you want to carry on, you can pay to carry on. And for the people that are high value, HVCs, what we call them, high value customers that travel all the time, high level frequent flyers, certainly there are exceptions for them, because they're on the airplane all the time. Of course, unfortunately, I hate to say it, and no offense to anybody out there that is a high mileage flyer, but in an emergency situation, they're the ones most likely probably going to reach for those bags, and probably did not listen to safety presentation because they've heard it hundreds and hundreds of times.
Yeah. So speaking of carry-on luggage and this whole situation, something related to it is, let's say somebody doesn't have a, well, let me just play this audio feedback. I think that would be the best thing to do. This is from Brian from Katy. He sent us some audio feedback. It's in the staging folder, and we're going to go, to me, it kind of relates to what we're talking about here. There's a concern of people about, like having important things that they need to have near them. What do they do in a situation like this? Where you have an airplane crash landing, or whatever you want to call it. And so let Brian tell us the situation.
Hello, Airline Pilot Guy crew. This is Brian from Katy. And after listening to the evacuations and people taking carry-on luggage off the planes. Uh, I wanted to give another viewpoint of that. Uh, I'm a type 1 diabetic, and I keep my medical supplies in my backpack that's underneath the seat in front of me. So if I have to evacuate, I will be taking that bag with me. I make a point not to carry it in the overhead bin, so we don't have to slow down people to get. If I had to evacuate, um, I just feel that having my insulin is something that's very important to my continued survival. Uh, I just wanted to get y'all's viewpoint to see if I should be doing something different. Please let me know. Have a good day. Bye.
Great question, Brian. And that's the reason why when people intend to take some carry-on luggage on board the airplane and they just can't get it on and they have to gate check it and put it underneath. That's why they always say, hey, if there's something important that you need, like medications, batteries, lithium-ion batteries, things that we don't want to be in your bag in the cargo hold, something that you may need to sustain your life. That's why they always say you need to take that out before we take it away from you and put it underneath.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I think what you're doing is right. Is the right thing to do. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a great believer in having a I don't know, you call them a fanny pack, we call it a bum bag, with your passport, some money, your wallet, and perhaps your phone and your medication, because you can strap that around your waist. It's not going to get in the way. You're never going to lose it, and it's always going to be there if you need to leave the aircraft in a hurry. So I think that's brilliant. In the future, of course, things like insulin will probably be more often delivered by a pump that's actually physically attached to your body all the time. And I know that technology is there, but it continues to improve. And I think more and more people will have that form of insulin delivery. But there are plenty of other medication style, or many other illnesses that require frequent medication of a different style, so that won't fix everything, but certainly I think it's a great idea to have a small pack that you keep with you all the time, just in case, in the same way that whenever I'm on the approach, or I'm after takeoff, I never take my shoes off and kick back until we're well airborne. And when we're on the approach, I have my shoes back on again, because the last thing I want to do is be trying to evacuate and running through puddles of flaming fuel without shoes on.
Do you bring out the fuzzy dice with the air freshener when you do that?
Yeah, I do. And I never wear my high heels on an airplane.
Good advice. You heard it here.
You're not allowed to go down the slide in high heels.
It's always safety is first. Safety
exactly.
First.
And one thing I'd like to add to that fanny pack list that people don't often think about is car keys.
Yeah.
That's something you don't want to put in the bin.
Dana, how many times do we hear that? People say, they start panicking because they're diabetic and they have insulin or like something that they need to eat, to keep the sugar levels, whatever. Did you not hear when we said take that stuff out of your bag? We can't get to it now. We're in flight. People just don't hear things that they should, I think.
Well, that's because 10 out of 9 people check their brain at the door when they enter into an airport. Did I say that out loud?
Yeah,
I think you just did.
And I think actually it's a bit unfair, because I think their brain is forcibly removed by the airline. I don't think they do it on purpose.
Part of the security process.
Yeah, I think that's what happens. It gets sucked out of them when they go through the archway.
The bonus about the fanny pack is it's very stylish.
Can be if you have a nice big fanny.
All right. Again, Liz, that's from Brian. Brian from Katie and the staging folder. So I thought it would be it kind of tied in with what we were talking about with the carry-on luggage scenario. Okay. So now let me see if I can find my place again. Oh, that was Ivor.
Steve,
are we close to the 2-hour point, Liz? Or should we? Okay.
I was close.
Let's do Steve Hurst's feedback. Jeff, I have a question mainly for you, but I guess Nick will have some useful insights on this too. Probably not. You have been on the. I'm just kidding. I added that. You have been on the Mad Dog for a very long time, and I always wonder how attached pilots become to the equipment they fly. With only a few years left before your retirement, have you ever considered bidding to move over to something different? For example, the 757, 767, or the A320 for the last few years of your career? I know the Mad Dogs are going away, and you could end up having to move away. But given the choice, would you stay on the Mad Dog until retirement, or does it appeal to you to have the challenge of transitioning to a new type? I guess it comes down to personal preference, and there will be some pilots like variety, and others prefer to avoid the hassle and pressure of everything involved in a conversion course and getting into the rhythm of operating on the line with a new aircraft. I welcome your insights into this question. Let me also take the opportunity to congratulate Nick on his retirement and for all that he has accomplished in his fantastic aviation career. Truly an inspiration to all those budding pilots out there. Keep the blue side up, Steve Hurst.
Oh,
that was nice of him to.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve.
And we have talked about this, Steve, on and off the last, I don't know, several shows regarding what are you going to do, Jeff, when the Mad Dog is gone? And I'm still struggling with that. I'm not sure. And you make the points that I've been making. It is comfortable to be on an airplane for a very long time. It's like putting on a well-worn glove. It feels comfortable, and there's no stress. On the other hand, if I ended up, the appeal of flying an airplane like the 7576 is there. And the only problem with that is it's a new type rating and it's a very stressful conversion course. The other way to go is to go to the 717, which is basically the McDonnell Douglas MD-95. It's very similar to what Dana and I fly now. A little bit different cockpit instrumentation presentation and different engines and that kind of thing, but not a lot of difference. It's only a 6-day course, I believe, something around that. So that would be easy peasy, not very stressful for me. So I don't know. I have not decided yet. There's still a chance because I've been through several fleet retirements in the past, and no matter what the experts tell you regarding the retirement schedule, they never ever go the way that they say they're going to go. And so I have a feeling that this airplane is going to be around longer than they think it's going to be. But I'm willing to take that chance. I'm very senior, number 17 out of how many are there on there now, Dana? 600.
Yeah, about 600
captains. Yeah. So I'm in the very high percentile of seniority on this thing, and I'll be able to stay on it until the last ones are gone, and that could present some opportunities for me. And it's possible if they stick around long enough that I'm so close to my retirement date that I may be able to qualify for a training bypass, which means that I bid for another airplane, but they don't send me to training on it because the amount of money and time and resources they use to get me qualified, and by the time I'm all qualified, they're going to get very little use of me, and it might be cheaper for them to just let me, not ever fly an airplane for Acme from that point on and just continue to pay me. So
we'll just go and permanent gardening leave. That's marvelous.
There you go. Yeah. So, I wouldn't be averse to that. So we'll see, a lot of different variables here. But I'm just going to go along with the flow for now and see how things go. Okay. And Dana and I hear all kinds of rumors every time we go to work. Like it's always something different. So you never really know what's going on.
What's Dana's choice going to be? What are you going to go for, Dana, again?
Well, right now I'm struggling with the fact that I'm already seeing the writing on the wall because we are so short-staffed right now, and the fact that they're trying to take my days off. And I got a very interesting voicemail the other day regarding that after I tried to tell them that I have to have oral surgery. So I'm really trying to decide. I have a fear and a feeling that what's going to happen is that they're going to realize that it's so short on the airplane that they've let too many guys go that they're not going to let anybody bid off of it, and basically bypass us into anything in the future for the next year or two. And that leaves me right at the bottom of the list. I'm going to be 11 from the bottom, which is not a very good place. I'm complete opposite of Jeff. I'm in a terrible place. Not complaining because I'm still a captain and I'm sitting in reserve in Atlanta, or will be, but I will have absolutely no control of my life and schedule. So that's not, as everybody has listened to this podcast for a while knows, where I want to be, because I'm more about a quality of life type of guy. So ideally, I would like to bid off as a captain as we continue to not really expand the flying in Atlanta. Actually, it seems as though we are shrinking a little bit for that part. I'm not sure I'll be able to hold on to Captain Hood unless I go to the 717. And I am really leaning towards going to that. My preference would be either the A220, or the baby bus, what we call the baby bus, which is the 320, 321. Because, well, the reality is I might as well go to an airplane that I'm going to retire off of if I'm going to have to go through a long course. So going to the Airbus product, and that's where the future of the airline seems to be. I mean, we do have a lot of Boeing 737 product and 5767. However, as newer Airbuses come on property, it seems as though the 5767 will continue to shrink, and the 73 will be the only other Boeing product, I think, in the future for my career expectations. So that's the long answer to my thoughts. I think probably the 717 initially. If I continue to stay in the left seat, if I go to right seat, I probably will go straight to the baby bus in the right seat, is my guess.
Now, a lot of people ask both Dana and I, why don't you guys fly the C series, the A220? And I would love to fly that airplane, actually, except that they're not going to be based in Atlanta. I don't know, maybe sometime way into the future they might, but it's planned for other bases for the time being, and I'm not going to commute to another, in my mind, ridiculous. So, and I'm sure that Dana feels the same way. As nice an airplane it is, I want to be flying an airplane that is close, at a base where I'm close to.
Yeah, and my feelings on that is I could actually be about 50 percentile in New York on the A220. So that would be, it's pretty senior.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would be exactly the same way. I have no real allegiance to an aircraft. Much more important to me was where I was based and where I was going. And how much control I had over my life.
Right.
As a professional pilot, I think you fly what's put in front of you, and you just get on with it. That's your job. No, it's what you do with your time off, where you go, and how much time off you get. All that kind of stuff is much more important.
Yep. I couldn't agree with you more. And and very much what like Jeff said earlier is it's like like an old glove. I mean, I've been on the airplane. Not including my time as an instructor teaching the airplane. I've been on the airplane now for 12 years essentially, and I go to work and I feel very comfortable. And it's for me going to the left seat as far as the transition goes, because I'm very familiar with the airplane. Learning the captain stuff from a familiarized position of knowing the aircraft has made my transition far easier.
You don't have to think about that very much.
Yeah, don't have to think about that very much. And I can, I can look over and see what the FO is doing and have a really good judge of whether the new FO or the senior FO is doing an excellent job, or whether they're having some issues and have to watch them a little closer. So that for me is a captain is a big advantage. That I feel that would play to my hand if I go to the 7-1. And if I go to the 7-1, quite honestly, I wouldn't mind trying to go into the line check program, become a line check pilot, because I still do, even to this day, miss teaching. I just don't want to come off the line and go into the simulator and lose my ability. All these years that I spent trying to become a airline pilot, like a lot of the mid-career changes that we've influenced and talked about, and have people that have decided to move into the flying world. You spend your entire 20s and 30s trying to get here. I don't want to spend my life in a box or in a work environment in an office. I want to be out there doing what I love to do. That's fly airplanes. So if I become a line check airman, using my knowledge that I have of the MD product, I would love to do it on the 88, but that door is closed. That opportunity is gone. So the only one I might have a chance at is the 71. So that is another thought, part of my thought process as well.
Very cool. So there you have it, at least at this moment in time. And let's see, I think we can squeeze another one in before we do the plain tale. Thomas sent us
what
some.
she said.
Yeah.
Family show.
Does she actually say the plain tale?
I don't think so.
Oh.
No, you can substitute any term for that.
Thomas sent us in some audio feedback about cleaning the flight deck.
Hey, APG crew, this is Thomas, and wanted to merge a few different podcasts I listened to into a quick piece of feedback for you. So,
wait a minute. We're not going to talk about any other podcast on this show. I'm finished with that. No, here we go.
Recently, our own Captain Nick was featured on another podcast I listened to called Every Little Thing. I'm addressing some aviation questions from people who don't necessarily have a background in aviation, so some more run-of-the-mill questions for pilots. And then I also heard a comment on one of the most recent episodes of Opposing Bases, and two of those things combined brought me back here to the APG show. Captain Nick mentioned on Every Little Thing about a type of pilot, shall we say, that is kind of the germaphobe who insists on going over every surface in the cockpit, all the flight controls and everything with wet wipes, some type of disinfectant, something like that, to clean the aircraft down before they, before they're on the aircraft for their leg or for their duration of flight, whatever it is. And on the other end of that, the guys from Opposing Bases, AG and RH, were discussing cleaning up the Tracon or cleaning up their radar room, and the fact that they have an approved liquid that they clean everything with. So basically, like, the scopes are only allowed to be cleaned with this liquid that, presumably is isopropyl alcohol based or something like that. But whatever it is, it's pre-approved. Use just a thing. So it got me thinking, do your airlines have a predisposition towards a certain type of cleaning liquid or wipe or something that you're allowed to clean the flight surfaces with? Did they kind of dissuade you from cleaning the different control surfaces and knobs and screens and things like that? Obviously, some of the cleaners out there that you can get may or may not harm the displays or the protectant on top of them. So it's kind of an interesting thing. It's totally random, but just happened to be that I listened to all three of these podcasts and heard all three of them in rapid succession and thought, I think I'm going to bring it back around to APG again. So are there certain ways that you keep the flight deck clean? If you are one of those germaphobes, I suppose, what do you use? And does your company have a policy about it? So a little bit of a random question, but I appreciate your time as always, and thanks for the show.
Thomas, I think there's a robot or something in the background that's about to eat you or something.
Sure did all that feedback. It's like the War of the Worlds.
I hope we have not received feedback since he sent this in, so we're hoping you're okay, Thomas.
Yeah.
So I was putting this in the camera. If you're watching the video podcast, I'm holding up a packet that has it's like a wet wipe, I guess. It's a large cleaning wipe. It's called iCloth that we can grab a bunch of in our pilot lounge. And it's obviously, well, I should say obviously, I'm assuming it's approved to clean all the glass surfaces of the instruments and whatnot, and including our EFBs. And of course, if you have an iPhone or something like that, it works really well for that. Even glasses. It's non-abrasive, and it's basically, I bet that the number one ingredient in it is isopropyl alcohol. Just looking at the back here. Well, I'm not sure if it says. No, it doesn't. It's probably some kind of a proprietary. Oh, wait, here it is. Yep. Isopropyl. It says contains isopropyl alcohol. So that's probably the main ingredient. Probably some distilled water or whatever in it too. The interesting thing about this is it has half the back of the page or the back of the packet talks about its approvals. It has the aerospace material specifications approval, Bombardier Aerospace, Cessna Aircraft Company, Boeing Material Specification, BMS 15-5F Class A, Douglas Material Specifications, it has another number, Japan Defense Agency, U.S. Air Force and U.S. Navy, Air Canada. So, in other words, these things are probably a lot more expensive than just getting a regular plain cleaning cloth that has isopropyl alcohol in it, which probably does the same exact thing. But because this has all the approvals and the specs on the back of it, I'm sure it's pretty expensive, but it works very well.
Yeah, we have two different types. One are biological wet wipes that we can use to clean stuff, but not the instruments, because I hate it when people use them on the instruments because they leave a horrible gunky, smear
Residue.
on it. For the instruments, we have a similar one, which is called Visual Anti-Static Wipes for instruments, and this comes with a NATO part number. So yeah, exactly
NATO.
right. Approved by major avionics and instrument manufacturers. So if you're going to do it on the screens, you use the anti-static stuff. If you're going to wipe down the controls, we use biological wet wipes. And this one, I have a two-stage one. One is the wet one, and then it comes with a second pouch which contains a dry one which you can use to polish off. But one thing we are very careful about is applying too much pressure to our LED. It was all right with the cathode ray tube displays on the old 340, but when we went to LED displays, a little bit too much pressure, and you can make a very expensive mistake.
Hey, here's something interesting that kind of ties into this whole, using something on wiping your instrument. As Neil said,
my instrument.
you have to use approved wipes on your instrument. It's very important.
Yes, you do.
But so this guy I was flying with says he's flying with this old geezer captain, kind of like me. I think that's what he was implying. And he said, "Have you ever heard of somebody using Rain-X on the wind?" And I'm like, yeah, my car, I put Rain-X on my windshield. And Rain-X is a product here in the U.S. that it's after the window's clean, you on a cloth, you put a few drops of Rain-X on it, and then you rub it onto the glass windshield of your car. And it has what it does is it causes rain to bead up and just basically flow right off. And sometimes when you have Rain-X treated windshield on your car, you hardly even need to use your wipers because of what it's done to the chemical property of the that top surface of your glass. And I said, "What? A guy actually used Rain-X on the 88 windscreen?" And he said, "Yep." And I said, "I don't know if I'd do that because it seems to me like you have to use authorized products on the windscreen. I don't know if they have any kind of special coatings on it or not, Dana. It's probably just plain old glass, several layers of glass. I would imagine that Rain-X wouldn't do any harm to it, but I'm thinking that that would probably be something that the mechanics would say, no, you can't do that. Do you know anything about that?
You ever notice on the airplane they have there's a little tube in front of the windshield?
Yeah, that's when we used to have the rain repellent, which was highly carcinogenic.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
They took those things out. But
it's very
Rain-X,
very similar to Rain-X. Not
yeah, but I think it was.
But
it was like I don't think Rain-X is like carcinogenic like the stuff that was on the airplane was.
No, I would imagine you'd have to use what's approved for the airplane. I mean, I pour water on the outside of the windshield to go ahead and clean it on occasion, but I don't think I'd go ahead and put Rain-X on it. It causes all types of problems with windshield wipers and gucking up and.
Well, he said that they flew to Houston, and the reason why he put it on, he said after he put the layer of Rain-X on, he asked, he had the bottle in his hand. He said, "Do you want to use this?" And the first officer said, "I don't think so," and because he had that same concern that we have. And he said when they flew in, it was like heavy rain, and he said that the guy, the captain's side, he didn't even have to use the wipers because everything was just like not sticking to the windshield. They said it was awesome.
I love it.
That'd be an interesting question to ask at work. Maintenance.
Yeah, I'd like to figure out if that's the case. If it's allowed, I'm going to start carrying a little bottle of Rain-X with me.
In the chat room, Nick Kamachko mentions that on his C-47 they used Renex. That way they didn't have to rely on their hydraulic windshield wipers.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Probably a great idea.
Yeah, so I have a feeling it probably wouldn't do any harm at all because it's just glass. Now they say don't use it on. There are a lot of airplanes out there that have plexiglass, which is plastic, not glass, and you definitely do not want to use Rain-X on those types of windshields because they will damage the plastic. But anyway, good. It's an interesting question. Yeah.
Plus, our windshields are heated, so I don't know if that has an effect on the chemical breakdown on the Rain-X or what it does as far as the stickiness of it. Because of course, turn the windshield wipers on after time, Rain-X will gunk it up. So that's why I personally don't use it on my. Well, Main Man Mike and Glenn say that they use Rain-X on their cars, but I don't use them because it gunks up the windshield wipers. Now, to answer the Thomas's question a little bit further for us, we do have two things that we can use. One's the Sanacom wipes that they have down in the flight in the pilot lounge, and also sometimes they have the benzo Cronine or something. It's also a sanitizing wipe that we can use. I've never seen an official list as to what we can use and what we can't use, but that's what the company provides available for us to use.
That benzo stuff is good for sniffing as well.
Oh yeah, man, that's
on the airplane in the flight attendant's kit.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
I have to be honest. You think I'm that bad of a germaphobe? I actually hardly ever clean the flight deck. I will
really
if I am going to eat anything or use my hands to eat, then I carry my own personal supply of like a hand sanitizer or hand wipes that I'll wipe my hands.
I just thought you put those surgical gloves on.
No, I'm not. I'm not that bad.
I just put my fingers in my mouth and just like sucking my fingers and gets all clean.
Well,
and then
exactly.
I was going to say that I clean my hands every time I go to the bathroom on the airplane and wash my hands in that water, but that really isn't the cleanest water in the world. So
you're probably right.
I think the Santa wipes are for like cleaning out the oxygen mask, right? I mean, that's I always assumed that those were for.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I.
Anyway,
if I said clean.
A lot to say about that. I think it's time. You know what time it is, don't you?
It's that time.
Yes, you do.
10 past 11 in the evening.
That's exactly what time it is, and it's also the time for us to play this week's installment of the Old Pilot's Plain Tales.
Hey there, APG crew, Nate from Brooklyn with a super quick.
That is not this week's installment of Plain Tales.
I'm sure that wasn't me.
Yeah, it said Nate. It's very similar to Nick. Here we go.
The Old Pilot's Plain Tales. Cloud suck. Cloud suck is a phenomenon commonly known in paragliding, hang gliding, and sailplane flying, where pilots experience significant lift due to a thermal underneath the base of a cumulus cloud, especially towering cumulus and cumulonimbus. Towering cumulus clouds can often be harbingers of destruction, and for pilots they should be respected and generally avoided by a wide margin. There is, however, a breed of pilot willing to court the danger present in these meteorological monsters. The violent updrafts and downdrafts, the heavy rain and hail, the turbulence, the freezing temperatures, and the lightning. These pilots fly some of the lightest aircraft around, sailplanes, but are willing to take the risks, as the rewards can be remarkable. Some pilots succeeded in taming the beast, like the veteran pilot who sadly passed away earlier this year at the ripe old age of 96, Derek Piggott. Let me take you back to 1953 when Derek was flying in a basic open cockpit two-seat glider with an unfortunate air cadet beside him. Without oxygen, he took the aircraft into a large cumulus cloud over Derbyshire, and when he and his co-pilot were nearly frozen stiff, he abandoned the climb and headed out of the cloud at 17,000 feet. Derek and his cadet were actually participating in the National Gliding Championship in an Air Cadet Gliding School T-21 Zedberg, and his flight established a British two-seater altitude record. A couple of years later, he tried a similar feat when he was flying out of the gliding center at Lasham, just a few miles up the road from where I sit right now. Piggott was the chief flying instructor, and he was there in slacks and a shirt, gazing upwards at the sky. It was a warm and muggy day, and cumulus clouds had been piling up all morning, an ideal day for gliding until fingers of lightning began to spike out of the cloud bank a few miles from the airfield. A winch tow was out of the question, since nobody wanted to be attached to a couple of 1,000 feet of steel cable when there was lightning about, so Derek arranged for their Tiger Moth to give him a tow. He wanted to take advantage of the conditions to attempt his Gold Sea Height Gain Award, for which he needed to climb his glider over 3,000 meters, and possibly, if the conditions were good enough, his Diamond Sea for a gain of 5,000 meters at 16,404 feet. An RAF friend had been flying his fighter in the area and had confirmed that the tops of the cumulus reached 30,000 feet, so the attempt was on. Derek clambered into the little cockpit of the club's new Slingsby Skylark sailplane, and with the Tiger Moth pulling him airborne, he followed the tow up to around 1,800 feet. When he released the tow cable, he pushed the stick hard forward to dive 100 feet, which would put a notch on the barograph height recorder and indicate that he had cut free from the tow. And he heeled the Skylark onto its wingtip to make it clear to the Moth pilot that he had released. Bringing his glider back to a more normal speed, the noise and vibration of the tow died away, and the loud whistle of air dropped a quiet hiss. Easing up to the edge of the storm, he felt for the lift and soon found it. His variometer started to show that he was climbing, and he spiraled up towards the cloud base. Soon he disappeared into the murky depths of the cloud as he followed the invisible column of air that moved forwards as the little aircraft was slammed into a downdraft and then heaved up again. A screeching howl came from above his head, where the clamps that kept the wing in place were twisted, and he had to tighten his straps and brace hard back into the seat to keep his head from being banged about. The altimeter needle was swinging back and forth, and the beads in the variometer dancing up and down. He began to regret that he hadn't worn anything more substantial than his short-sleeved shirt and slacks, because if he had to bail out, it could be the end of him. The squeaking wing clamps were soon drowned out with the deafening rattle of hail and heavy rain pounding the glider, splattering over the canopy. He had flown in plenty of clouds, but nothing like this. A wind shear brought his speed up to 50 knots, and he had to use his air brakes to bring the bucking Skylark back under control. The bucking eased, and suddenly he was hissing upwards again. As the hail stopped, the cloud around him was suddenly lit up like an enormous flashbulb had fired. No thunder, but his world was illuminated by lightning, and he could feel a tingle of electricity through the control stick and rudder pedals. Still no thunder, but then jagged stalks of lightning, many half an inch thick, began to lash at his glider. Then a blinding bolt smashed into the cockpit with the sound of a pistol shot. The bolt flashed between the rudder pedals and filled the cockpit with a stench of ozone, and although the electricity continued to thrash the little aircraft, it was quiet again. just the whistle of the slipstream. In the distance, he could hear the booms of thunder, and again the lightning snicked into the cockpit. This time it felt like his control column had been plugged into a power socket, and his arm ached as the shocks ran through him again and again. He couldn't let go of the stick. He just had to endure the pain, and there was no kidding himself anymore. He was truly scared. The last bolt to go through him made him yell out loud, but as he continued to climb, he spiraled into less violent conditions, and the lightning eased away. Now he felt a new concern. He began to feel a little lightheaded and knew that he was starting to suffer from hypoxia, a lack of oxygen, and it was getting worse. There was nothing he could do. The little skylark had no oxygen, so he continued upwards. Changing his course, he straightened out, but the compass wasn't indicating properly, and the controls felt stiff. He was icing up. He could feel the ice forming, and soon he needed both hands on the stick just to move it. He took a chance, and he heaved the stick from side to side, and the glider leapt upwards as the ice fell away. He could fly again, but the ice was also building on the nose and the leading edges of his wings. His trim tab was as far as it could go to counter the weight, and he began to worry that his pitot tube was icing up. As he tried to work out what might be wrong with his instruments, he realized he wasn't sure whether his altimeter read 6 or 16,000 feet. He opened up the little window on the side of the Perspex cubby and tried to breathe some fresh air, but he was giggling like a child and squinting at the instruments to try to read them properly. And he realized that he was passing 17,000 feet and then 18,000 feet and still going up. He tried to remember his plan and how high he needed to get to be awarded his Diamond C, but he wasn't sure anymore, so he decided to continue to 19,000 feet and then head out of the cloud. He knew he was getting hypoxic. His eyelids felt as heavy as sandbags, and his head lolled around and seemed difficult to lift up. The thermal was still very strong, and as he squinted at the altimeter, he realized it read 20,000 feet, and he knew it was time to go. He felt limp in his straps and close to fainting. So he put his fingers through the little side window to deflect some cold air onto his face. He eased out his air brakes, and the hissing airstream quietened as he slowed. He began to descend, but another updraft caught him, and in his confused state he thought, I might as well go up again just to make sure. Popping the air brakes back in, he shot upwards, and as the Skylark spiraled round, Derek Piggott sank limply back into his seat. He had no recollection of the next few minutes as his faithful little glider flew him into the record books. He was now an unconscious passenger along for the ride. The trace on his barograph was the only thing to record his story as it quietly ticked along, the needle tracing his height onto the rotating cylinder. Derek climbed so fast that the trace actually left a curving line on the smoke paper that leant backwards. An instrument that was only designed to cope with a 6-kilometer climb, which could only reach 23,200 feet, the needle flew right off the top of the recording paper. How he flew the aircraft in his semi-conscious state, he had no idea, but as he dove his aircraft down again, the trace restarted. Afterwards, it would be checked and double-checked, and by carefully extending the visible lines on the paper, it was possible to confirm that he had climbed above 25,000 feet. He didn't remember coming round, but slowly consciousness returned, and he was able to look around the cockpit. He was already down to 16,000 feet, and he slammed open the air brakes to hasten his descent. Down and down he spiraled through the dense cloud until eventually he popped through the cast into a mix of rain and hail. Deeply breathing the thick, cold air, he felt awful. Looking through the weather, he spied the hospital in Alton, the town local to Lasham. He flew round and round it, but in his confused state, he couldn't remember how to get to the airfield. Several times he started to head west, but then he became anxious and didn't want to leave the familiarity of the town because he felt truly lost. Eventually, as the rain died away, he was able to ease his way over to the airfield, and he finally found himself circling above the park gliders 6,000 feet below that he had been amongst only an hour and a quarter previously. When he finally skidded the Skylark to a stop on the grass, he could barely climb from the cockpit. He was in a bad state, and so was his aircraft. Lightning had burnt holes in the glider's fiberglass nose and scarred the fabric covering. There were slits and slashes all over the aircraft from the hailstones and the ice that had built up on the wings. The rudder had been hit by lightning, and it had ripped away a large portion from one side, leaving an ugly burn. It took Derek Piggott 2 days to recover properly, but he was awarded both his Diamond C, and in doing so, he had achieved a British glider climb record. Derek went on to enjoy a charmed life as a pilot, featuring in the movie those magnificent men in their flying machines, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and the Red Baron, as well as the Blue Max, where he was enlisted as one of several pilots who helped recreate the live dogfight scenes for the film. However, the stunt that forms the climax of the film. The two rival pilots challenge each other to fly beneath the spans of a bridge over a river, taking the role of both German pilots, and with multiple takes from different camera angles, Derek ended up flying through the wide span of the bridge, which was actually an island, 15 times. The wide span had a comfortable amount of room, but it required the pilots to compete by flying through a narrower portion. The two Fokker replicas had about 4 feet, just over a meter of clearance on each side when passing through the narrow span. It was an amazing feat to do just once, but Derek had to fly through the span 17 times to get all the shots that were required. The danger that Piggott put himself through wasn't just due to the lack of oxygen he encountered during his record flight. The perils of lightning strikes are severe, particularly in sailplanes that are constructed from glass-reinforced plastics. Let me quickly tell you about a training glider that was operating from a site in the UK near Dunstable. The aircraft was a Schleicher ASK-21 two-seat glider, and the instructor was undertaking the last flight of the day since a line of weather could be seen slowly moving into the area. Thunderstorms had been forecast, so winch launches had been stopped, but aircraft tows were still available. Having been towed up to over 2,000 feet, the pilots had soared up to 4,000 feet before returning to the airfield along the front edge of the weather. They were in smooth air, being gently lifted at 2 or 3 knots, when a bolt of lightning reached out and struck the glider on the right wing. The power of the strike, which was conducted along the control rods that run inside the wings, caused such an overpressure that it literally blew the wing open. The combination of the aerodynamic forces and the vast increase of pressure inside the structure of the glider caused it to literally disintegrate. The instructor remembered hearing an enormous bang and then feeling very drafty. He may have lost consciousness for a moment. Dazed, he knew that something was seriously amiss, and he shouted to his student to abandon the glider, but deafened by the noise, the student couldn't hear anything. However, he had already decided that he should get out of the stricken aircraft, and he jumped for his life. The instructor reached to jettison the canopy and then realized it wasn't necessary. It had been blown off. Both pilots managed to get out safely, and by 1,800 feet, they were hanging beneath the canopies of their parachutes. The student landed on the roof of a disused petrol station near a busy road, but escaped serious injury. The instructor, unfortunately, broke his ankle on landing, as well as suffering sooting on his jacket, parachute pack, and the back of his head as a result of the lightning strike. They were lucky, and the Air Accident Investigation Board made several recommendations to glider manufacturers to try and prevent future occurrences. If you've enjoyed this story, then please leave us a review at Apple Podcasts.
I couldn't tell if that was the end of it or not. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I should have a more abrupt ending, perhaps.
No. I should do some prep work and adjust the size and make it so that I don't have to worry about it. But it's always one of those things I never remember to do until we're actually playing it. Well, it's too late for that. Anyway, another excellent plane tale. And wow, the things that this man endured. I don't know if I'd ever gotten up in another airplane again after that glider thing that he experienced.
I think Derek Piggott was a man who probably enjoyed a certain amount of tension and danger in his flying.
He must have, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, being a stunt pilot, etc. He flew a replica of Cayley's glider. Before the Wright brothers flew, there was a chap called Cayley who sent his footman up in a glider. Well, they built a replica and flew it, and Derek Piggott was a pilot. He was also a pilot in one of the aircraft made to try and take some of the man-powered flight records, win those prizes. So I mentioned him in a previous plane tale, the one I did about On Wings of Gossamer, I think it was called, the story of man-powered flight. So he's been around before, but he was one of these blokes that just lived for flying, and he was very well known in the British gliding world. And much admired as well. He was, I think he got an MBE and many gliding awards as well. So he's a fine chap, and just so happened that he sadly passed away earlier this year.
Oh, that is sad and amazing that the story about him doing the stunt flying in that movie where he only had 4 feet of clearance. In the narrowest spans of the bridge
would be enough, but 17 times.
Yeah, that's I think once or twice maybe that's doing anything more that's really pushing it.
Yeah, apparently the director put a flock of sheep beside the bridge so that when he flew through, the sheep would be scattered and the watchers would realize it was a real aircraft and not a model. But by the 17th take, the sheep got so used to it they carried on eating grass.
I hope he got paid a lot for that.
I don't know. He probably did it for fun because he seemed to be like one of those kind of blacks, didn't he?
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again, Nick, for the hard work you put into those things. Those are just always very entertaining.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks.
Clouds suck. Clouds suck? Huh? What?
Well, yeah, you'd think so, wouldn't it? Clouds suck. they do a bit. Anyway, we're all like flying outside of clouds, but no, it's a term I had never come across. Cloud suck.
Never heard of that myself either. All right, let's move on. Dave, he's a new listener, and he's an AMT. He said, let me repeat that again. I'm a new listener to ABG and really enjoy all you do. I'm currently an AMT at a major legacy carrier out of Cleveland and attending a school to get all my ratings and hours using the amazing GI Bill. As an AMT with my knowledge of the airframes, and I guess that's aviation or aircraft maintenance technician. Is that what that stands for, Dana? AMT?
Yeah, that's exactly what it stands for.
He's working with the same people every night, which can make the job even more enjoyable. Oh, wait, no, I skipped. I'm sorry. As an AMT with my knowledge of the airframes, What advantages do you think someone in my position has that will help me in flying when I reach that level? Also, one of my favorite things about being an AMT is working with the same people every night, which can make the job even more enjoyable. So I'm curious, how is it flying with different pilots quite often? Lastly, there seems to be a disconnect on relationships between pilots and AMTs. In your words, what do you think may cause this? Happy AMT Day to all my fellow AMTs. Oh, I wonder what day that was. Well, you sent this in on June 19th. Maybe that was AMT Day. I don't know. Or maybe he sent this in actually on May 24th. That's the other date that I see on this. Anyway, thank you, Dave. And I'm glad that you're working on your ratings and hours with the amazing GI Bill. What advantages do we think that someone in his position has that will help him in flying when he reaches that level? Dana, I think you'd be a perfect person to answer that question.
Yeah, I mean, Dave, your level of expertise, and especially with how the aircraft operate in general, I think will be an excellent attribute to help you get through training. Even though nowadays, and I have to kind of caution myself, because back in the day when we used to teach the airplane, it was far more labor intensive to know all the systems on the aircraft. So I think going forward, we don't teach it nearly as much. So I think your level of understanding will help you to get to that level. Also, once you're out flying the line, it also will help you to understand the aircraft a whole lot better. Also, knowing that you have some interaction with pilots now, and sometimes good, sometimes not so good. Sometimes you have a little stress between friction, I think is the better word, between pilots and maintenance people. It will really help you to understand both sides of the job. Kind of where I'm at with all the experience I have with all the different positions that I have been in. It gives me a lot more apathy as to what the other person is going through at that time. So,
or empathy, maybe.
Empathy.
Yes.
Yeah, empathy.
Empathy is the wrong thing to say.
Empathy. It's the wrong word. Empathy. Empathy is the proper word. Yes. Thank you, Jeff. So empathy as to what the other person is going through, whether it's an AMT out there in, blowing cold rain, trying to change brake or a tire, or, fix a problem with the aircraft, or, the pilot over, sitting next to you is trying to explain to the AMT how things are not going, the way that they're supposed to be going, and help them to describe it to the AMT so they might be more effective in fixing the problem or addressing the problem. So you have a unique perspective, because as you go forward in your career as a pilot, you will have that AMT background to fall upon. There are some airlines out there, not here necessarily, that do like to have a pilot that's an AMT, because you can dispatch with an AMT as long as you're certified. They may actually allow you to fly with the aircraft and be able to, with a flyaway kit, be able to be with the aircraft and fix it. So I'm not saying that's an American way of things, but I've heard that is somewhat true on some major international carriers out there in not so populated. What's the word I'm looking for? What's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know.
Yeah, not like a mainline type of airline. Let's say like a British Airways or Air France or a United or something like that. But
Maybe
some of the
like
small,
a
like a
non-Stab
Calita or something like that. Something like that. And I'm saying in more of like second world, maybe in third world countries. That's if you are trying to market both sides of that. I would imagine that you'd want to be with the main line here in the U.S., but I'm just throwing that out there that is a positive as well. So that's my take on it. I think it's an excellent ability that you'll have to be able to see it from two different perspectives.
I agree. I think that having the background and the knowledge and perspective of an AMT and then transitioning to pilot, it really makes you appreciate AMTs. And I never had the experience of being an aircraft maintenance technician, but I really do appreciate you. And I guess the relationship thing that you're talking about, I think that it depends on the pilot. There are certain people that just have personalities and they really don't get along with anybody but like fellow pilots. So I don't know why, but I try to get along with and appreciate what everybody brings to the table. And when a maintenance technician gets on the airplane and needs to resolve a situation and work on the airplane and everything else, I really respect them and try to give them, communicate as best I can to them what the problem is and how it occurred, and give them as much information as I can so they can work the problem as best they can. But yeah, what do you do about that? I don't know. They're people, humans, and some are good and some are bad.
I think the relationship between pilots and mechanics isn't always a natural one. A mechanic has, thinks the aircraft is serviceable and believes the aircraft is serviceable and wants you to take it. And the captain is always naturally reticent, sometimes suspicious, cautious, perhaps is a better way of putting it, and wants to get the full explanation, make his own judgment, see the documents, look at the MEL, and make a judged decision. And I've been put in the situation several times where an engineer is pushing very hard for me to accept an aircraft, and I'm just not in two minds. I'm really not sure. And therein lies the difficulty. I feel like I'm being pressured sometimes to take an aircraft that I'm not convinced is absolutely, as safe as I want it to be. Mm-hmm. And there is the disconnect. An engineer might go, well, I don't understand what the problem is because I just fixed this damned airplane and it's ready to go. And I'm sitting there going, well, yeah, thanks very much. Really appreciate all the work you've done, but you're not the poor sucker that's going to fly it. And I see that this problem has reoccurred 4 times, and every time it's been, in inverted commas, fixed, and every time it's landed and the problem has reoccurred. What assurance do I have that it's not going to happen the same way? So I try and be as diplomatic as I can when I'm dealing with those kind of situations, but there is obviously a natural resistance sometimes to take someone's word for it. You want to be able to see for yourself and see the guy, look at the guy in the eye and be assured that the work that's been done is going to make the aircraft safe and well to fly.
Well, in case in point, look at my conversation last week regarding the elevator. Jeff, you flew that exact same airplane, mm-hmm. and I had that conversation with the folks locally who was a contract maintenance, and he was trying to do give us the best resolution. And I was talking to the folks in the control center, and the maintenance guy on the other end of the line didn't like what my query was, just like what Nick's talking about. I mean, we've got a repetitive check that's not being properly done per the procedures. Well, where does it say they can do this? And right. Of course, did not like that answer. But we got to the bottom of it and got it done properly. So ultimately, it is our behinds on the line, whether it's either legally or physically. And we've got to think about the 100 and how many of the passengers behind us. Just like Nick has 200 and something. Now he's retired, of course, but that's the thing, is being diplomatic and talking to people. And all 3 of us, I think, will probably be on the same page. As I talk to people like I want to be talked to. I talk to people nicely. I don't ever talk down to anybody. I always address people, appropriately. And when there's questions that need to be asked, and you just ask them in a way that's hopefully not going to offend somebody. You always try to, ask how somebody's day is going. I mean, that just opens up the door for just being that you're pleasant. So, I try to head off any of that negative vibe between, that can occur. Between maintenance personnel and us flight ops people.
And just because something is in the MEL, the minimum equipment list, and it says that you're allowed to operate the airplane with this degraded capability, doesn't necessarily mean it's a good idea. And that's where airmanship comes in, and we've talked about that many times on the show. It's more than just being a pilot or a captain or a first officer. It's being having good airmanship and good judgment. And that's why they pay us the big bucks to do this. So we make good decisions.
Right. And that's, exactly.
All right. Very good. Great discussion. Thank you, Dave. Welcome aboard the APG. and I think you're going to do great in transitioning to pilot, being both a pilot and AMT. That's awesome. All right.
Yeah, on one other thing I want to mention on that, Jeff, and I just thought of it because one of my best buddies, Dave, who you've met, flies for a yellow airplane company, Spirit, and he also was an AMT, a very good buddy of mine, and he has actually utilized that in a different way as well. He works for the safety committee and the investigation committee for ALPA. So he's implied his ability as an EMT to work towards flying the airplanes better and safer, and also help to investigate any situations that arise, and that's using your talents also in an additional a positive way.
Yes, awesome.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness gracious! Can't believe what I'm seeing.
Hi.
Here.
Who is that beautiful woman?
I see. Oh.
Who is that beautiful beer swilling woman?
What is that you're putting in your mouth there?
Dogfish Head 60-minute IPA.
Ooh, that's a good one. I like Dogfish Head.
You're just about to go on the stage then, Steph.
I am.
Yeah.
Are we doing a show? Is that what's going on?
Miss USA pageant, right?
Oh, okay.
Or Miss World.
Yeah.
All right. Try to. You're kind of faint, so
Sorry,
try to.
and it's,
there you go.
I just realized it's very echoey in here, and I'm going to move because I was trying to get all of this set up on my Surface tablet, which I brought so I could do work, and this is why I hate Microsoft. It just, nothing seems to work right. Let me go over. Let me find a different place where it's not.
Yeah, actually, I don't even think it's coming from your earbud mic. I think it's just picking it up from the computer. Really, it seems like you're far away.
Hello.
Oh, maybe it is coming from that. Okay.
Yeah. It is. Yeah.
All right.
I'll just come sit over here on the bed. How about that?
Okay.
All right.
Can we all sit with you on the bed, Steph?
Okay, let's all of us sit.
Well, if you were here with me in Burr Ridge, Illinois, you could, but I don't think you are.
Where?
Burr Ridge. It's a suburb of Chicago.
Where are you, Steph?
Burr Ridge. Burr Ridge.
Burr Ridge.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent.
That's what they say in the wintertime. Burr Ridge.
Well, right now it's raining and it doesn't feel very summery for the first day of summer. It is 68 degrees outside.
Oh, that's chilly.
Yeah.
And you're up there doing some lecturing?
Yep, doing some teaching, an injection course. And I've got about 10 minutes to join you all because I have to go to faculty dinner tonight. And of course, the air conditioning came on that I sat right in front of.
Oh, that's okay. I really don't even hear it, so you can stay.
It's not hot in here. I don't need the AC.
Okay, yeah, that's probably not good for you.
I turned it off and it won't turn off. That's about right.
Oh, well.
I love hotels. I'm not sure how you guys do it. So.
Well, I'm glad you made a cameo appearance.
Yeah, it's good to see you guys.
Yeah. Well, we were sorry that you weren't able to make it with us this episode, but
sorry for the confusion. I thought
hey, that's okay. It's me. I just wasn't paying attention, obviously. So we've talked about a lot of stuff on today's show, and look forward to you maybe putting in your 2 cents worth when you get a chance to listen. Especially the one article that we were talking about regarding physical strength with the flying.
I know which one that one is.
Yeah.
That's a 737.
Yeah. But I think listen to what we said. I think you'd appreciate it.
I'll listen to what you said, and I have obviously I don't have any experience flying the 737, but I just part of different online communities that I'm a part of. Several female pilots who do fly the 737 have voiced their opinions on it, and I can maybe summarize a little bit. Not right this minute because I didn't go back and look at it specifically, but
excellent.
The general gist is that they didn't think that there was the max aside, they didn't think there was much of an issue. So
yeah, I was saying that. Well, you'll listen, and no need to go over it again now because we already fully covered it, I believe. But you want to hang around for a few minutes for some more?
I can hang around for about 5 more minutes.
Okay, very good.
Sorry.
Well, what do you think about us continuing with some audio feedback from Dylan?
Sure.
Okay, here we go.
Hi, APG crew. My name is Dylan, listening from Tibet. I've been listening for a few years now, and I'm always eagerly waiting for the next episode. Today, I have a little bit of feedback and also a question. My feedback is concerning the news you covered in episode 374 about Tunisia Air landing when they were told to go around. When you covered this piece of news, you talked about the problems that can come from ATC and pilots speaking different languages on the radio, as well as the problems that can arise from strong English accents. Here in Tibet, I teach English at a university, and I focus on teaching English as a foreign language, meaning that students will be using English to communicate with people who don't speak the same language as them. They might be speaking English with someone who's a native English speaker like me, or they could be using English to communicate with someone whose native language is something other than English. I'd imagine this is quite common in the aviation world. For example, say at Beijing Airport, the person in the tower, their native language would be Chinese. They might be communicating with a flight coming from Paris. That pilot's native language would be French. But the two of them are able to communicate by using English, a foreign language for both of them. I'm guessing my students probably won't be pilots or work with air traffic control, but they are learning English for much as the same reason as that pilot and the air traffic control. It can be very difficult to understand someone who is speaking English as a foreign language. For me, it took a while to catch the way my students speak. But it is very difficult for students to understand each other when speaking English. So I totally understand the difficulties between the Tunisian air flight and the tower. This can be a hard problem to fix. Now my question. The airport I fly in and out of here in Tibet is the Lhasa Airport, LXA, with an elevation of 13,000 feet. The last time I flew out, I was curious about how long it would take for the plane to take off. I was assuming it would take longer to take off than at a lower elevation, but I don't really know why I thought this. So, for reference, on this particular flight, I was flying on a new Airbus A319-100. Pretty much all the seats were full, and it was about a 2-hour flight. When I felt the jet spool up, I started my timer and stopped it when we were airborne. I'm sorry, I forgot to write down the exact time of how long it took. The next flight I took, a relatively new set out of Chongqing. This airport has an elevation of 1,300 feet. This was also a full load of passengers and about a 2-hour flight. I include this because I'm sure weight is one of the most significant factors of a takeoff. To my surprise, the takeoff times of these two flights were within a few seconds of each other. So I was wondering if the elevation of where you're flying in or out of is part of your checklists for takeoff and landing. And are you surprised that the time it took to take off between an airport at 13,000 feet and 1,300 feet are so similar? Thanks again for the great show and happy flying.
Well, he poses some good questions here regarding performance at high altitudes. And I think the first thing he assumes is that, it would be better performance for somebody for an air. I think maybe I took it the wrong way, but I thought he said he was surprised because he thought that the higher altitude would be a better performance situation because you're already up at altitude. But in fact, as we all know, the higher altitude performance is actually harder. It's more difficult because you're working in much thinner air. That higher altitude gives you much thinner air, and the power that you're going to get from your engines is less, and a lot of your true airspeed. You're indicated to get the true. Well, I'm going to dig myself in a hole if I start working with.
You're trying to work around density altitude, yes.
Yeah, there we go. Well, as somebody, a general aviation pilot is very, very familiar because it's much more affected than commercial airline flying as far as density altitude.
Yeah, it makes a much bigger difference for us probably, although it's not an airplane's an airplane. So
what is that?
So the main let's see if I can explain this in a way that it makes sense, because it all has to do with how dense the air is. The more dense the air is, the better the aircraft is going to perform, because you have more air molecules per, say you had a square foot or a square inch or some square cubic space of the environment, how many air molecules you can pack into there will determine your performance. So the more air molecules you have, the better lift you're going to get for the aircraft. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's really no difference than for us as far as lift goes. It's actually the performance of the engine. And it's normally aspirated engines for general aviation are far more susceptible to altitude restrictions than a jet engine is.
Yeah, exactly. So as you decrease the number of those air molecules, so it decreases with temperature. The hotter it gets, you're going to have the air molecules are actually just moving faster in that space, so they spread out more. So the effect is that it feels like you have fewer molecules in that same amount of space. And also with altitude, as you go higher, you have fewer molecules per given set of volume of air. So whenever you do one of those two things, your performance decreases. So both altitude and temperature will have a decreasing effect on performance.
Now, do you think in the couple of scenarios that he described, he thought it was remarkably similar, the time that it took for the takeoff roll before they became airborne? Do you think that is more to do with the fact that the high altitude airport, they were probably using a much higher thrust setting?
Well, probably that. He also brought up weight. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know what the weights were.
We don't know what the weights were. I think that probably has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of variables.
There's probably a lot of there's always a lot of variables, so that's why you really need to look at your performance calculations, especially if you're going to be operating in unusual environments. So that's my 2 cents on that. And unfortunately, I have to go to the faculty dinner. So
Okay, we'll go to that darn faculty dinner.
Brief cameo here, but it's good to see you guys. I'll see
you good to see you too.
Yeah. Brilliant, Steph. Have a lovely evening.
Have fun.
And hey, I got a tip for you, Steph. Don't lecture to the faculty people there.
No, they actually probably mostly know more than I do. I'm on the younger side of the faculty, so I defer to their wisdom.
Okay.
All right. Cheers, y'all. Have a good night.
Bye.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Cheers.
All right. Well,
so my sixpenny worth on that is, of course, the air density varies and with altitude, and that affects your thrust. However, it also affects the relationship between your ground speed and your indicated airspeed. So as you're roaring down the runway, your engines are going to be producing less thrust because particularly in that takeoff environment, you've got thinner air going through them, and you're going to have to reach a much higher ground speed to get the same indicated airspeed, which will be your takeoff speed. So your ground roll is going to be a lot longer, and generally speaking, your time on the ground will be also a lot longer for that very reason. I just think it was a coincidence. Perhaps the aircraft weight had varied, whatever was in the cargo hold, or the flap settings were different, or for whatever reason, those two times were the same between 1,300 feet and 13,000 feet. But I would normally expect an aircraft getting airborne from high altitude to spend a lot longer on the ground. And as a result, you should have got a marked difference. When we took off in an A340 out of Johannesburg, which is only 5,000 feet, our takeoff roll was in the region of 20 to 25% longer on the ground, and so much more that we used to make a special announcement to the passengers saying, those of you who are experienced passengers will notice that we'll spend longer on the ground during this takeoff than we normally would, but please don't be concerned. It's due to the altitude of the airport, because it was a marked factor.
Yeah, and if you take a look at an airport like Denver, which is about 5,000 feet, I mean, I think I'm not looking straight at the chart, but I think the runway lengths are 12,000 feet long.
Yeah,
right
the shortest
around
ones are 12, I think.
Yeah, 12, maybe 14,000 feet
Some,
long.
I think,
And
maybe 16.
Yeah, the takeoff roll at higher altitudes can be far longer. The other thing, he mentioned about what consideration in what I used to think about in brief specifically is going into a high altitude airport, landing into a high altitude airport. When you go to flare, you don't have quite the authority that you normally do down towards sea level, like especially with our airplane that we're so used to flying out east. You go to flare the airplane, and the as you talk about air density, the effectiveness of the elevator is not there as we're normally used to. So, thinking about the fact of an earlier flare, and also thinking about the fact of the effect on the braking on the aircraft, and how much more energy you need to stop the aircraft at that higher altitude, because it will be a much longer landing roll. and brake temps will tend to be higher, as you and I have been briefed about through many memos, Jeff, going into someplace like Denver or Albuquerque
or El Paso.
Yeah.
Just a point of fact, there's 6 runways at Denver International. 5 are 12,000 feet long. One of them is 16,000 feet long. So
I want the 16,000 foot long one, please.
Now, here's a question. I'm trying to wrap my brain around this, and I'm not sure I quite know if this is a factor or not. So we're talking about we need more distance, more runway to take off at the higher altitude. But we also said that our ground speed has to be a lot faster to get the appropriate indicated airspeed, because that's what the airplane really cares about, is indicated airspeed. So does that mean that the actual timing, if you hit the stopwatch, is going to be significantly different, even though your distance is a lot longer because your ground speed's higher? You know what I mean? I'm thinking.
It depends how much you're willing to flex the engines, Jeff. So if we applied a flex temperature, we could reduce the power of the engines on an airfield that's sea level and achieve the same takeoff run, because we're using much less thrust than we would be at altitude. But eventually, of course, you can't achieve a balanced field performance because the airfield altitude becomes too high, and you just have to use a much higher power setting. So yeah, if you're working balanced field, in other words, you're balancing the power so that you always achieve your takeoff speed at the same point on the runway, then that can work. But eventually, I mean, on the 340-300, which wasn't overpowered, then
nice way to say it.
Thank you. We used to basically use full power out of Joburg because we had to, and we just hope for the best.
Hope they just stay together.
Yeah.
One of the things that Dana and our company has been doing for the last few years is what we call flex flap settings. Is that what they call it? Flex setting, where instead of using just a standard takeoff flap setting on all takeoffs, they'll adjust that. And if they can get away with the performance of using reduced thrust and it's a nice long runway, they'll, instead of using flaps 11, we'll use flaps 5. And that always means that we're going to be on the runway for a lot longer. I mean, sometimes it's like you feel like looking down at your watch to see if, how much time has elapsed since you started the takeoff roll, because you've been forever on the runway. But you're at a much higher speed, of course, by the time you finally lift off. And we all love those flaps 5 takeoffs, don't we, Dana?
Yeah, it's kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah,
it really. I mean, the airplane is the airplane is rattling, it's rolling, it's jarring. It's just not a very comfortable ride.
And you can imagine the people in the back are going, "Are we ever going to lift off here?"
Yeah, well, and when we're, I mean, almost never is it off of the north side, Jeff. It's always tends to be in Atlanta,
27 right,
27 right, nine left. And you're looking at the runway available signs going by, and you're down to on such a, what are we at, 10,000 feet on that runway?
No, it's longer than that now.
They extended it. I don't remember what it is. I mean,
12, I think.
I mean, almost 12 now. Well, it depends on if it's Lima Charlie or not.
Yeah. Yes.
Which I don't remember the specific number. I think that's just under 11,000. So you're looking at that, and you're looking. It's about 4,000. Oh, 3,000. Oh yeah. Well, we're finally rotating. You're losing quite a bit of that runway up. And flaps 5. When I was a first officer, I flew several guys that absolutely refused to use flaps 5. They would always use normal power takeoff.
Yeah, well, if you used flaps 11, then you'd have
flaps 11.
Go flaps 11. You'd have to use normal power, which is a higher power setting. And now you're thinking, well, now are we exposing ourselves
to a potential engine failure?
Possibility of engine failure.
Yeah,
that would be a big thing on my mind right now, especially the number of engine failures we've been experiencing on these JT 80s.
JT-219s.
12,390 feet full length for
full length. Yeah, so
right.
It's I think it's
12,000 feet. If you take that 390 feet, that's about where Lima Charlie is, or Mike 2. But anyway, regardless, it's a long runway.
It's a long runway, and it's a long roll. But a lot of factors, I think, beyond. I mean, some of the things when I'm thinking about is wind. What was the wind like? What were the engines? Are they different engines on the airplane?
Yeah.
What was the flex, or was there a flex? Was it max power? There is, in theory, some places or some points in time that your takeoff roll would be about the same amount of time, depending on the conditions, both at 13,000 feet and 1,300 feet. It really would depend.
Yeah.
Now, the problem we often suffered was not any of the problems we've discussed, but exceeding the tire limit speed.
Mm-hmm.
And if you did that on takeoff, because a slightly slow rotation, you'd exceed the tire limit speed. And if they were brand new tires, which cost over £1 million to replace in the aircraft, it was very easy to have them all taken off when you landed back at Heathrow and thrown away. And the company used to get very upset when that happened.
Were you exaggerating when you said £1 million?
No, I don't think so. If you can take off, I don't know how much these tires cost, but when you wreck a full set of tires, that's
maybe it would be that.
How many tires are on the 340?
What's for 248 through 12.
Wow.
So I don't know exactly how much that costs, but it's an awful lot of money.
Yeah.
Hey Jeff, do you know our tire operational speed?
It was like what, 205 or something like that?
Yeah, I think it's 210.
Okay, 210. It was 200 something.
205.
Too fast. Okay. Very, very good. Well, that was a good discussion. Thank you, Dylan, for asking the question. So we have time for one more, and just barely. No, you know what? We might actually be too close to the end.
We also didn't do the coffee fund.
Yeah, we did.
Yes, we did.
Did I miss
and
it?
while we're talking about it, we could have done another one feedback.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
I thought.
Put that in. I can just edit all this out.
Oh yeah, that's fair enough. Go on. How big is
one more? One more.
Okay, how big?
One more.
Well, Robert sent us some feedback. Interesting question, Robert from Marietta. This came up for discussion in a forum recently, and I've noticed varying lengths of seat belts. Older air seem to be shorter in length than the new aircraft seatbelts overall. So is it truly up to the flight attendant's discretion, or do different exit doors accommodate different sized passengers? So he's referring to this article, this link here from news.com.au in their travel section. A man accuses Qantas of fat shaming him out of exit row seat. Darren Beal says he specifically booked exit row seats for extra legroom, but was bullied by that was in quotes, by a flight attendant and forced. A man, let's see, he was on a local Today show in Australia that he specifically booked the seat in the emergency exit row on a Melbourne to Brisbane flight so he could have extra legroom. But a flight attendant told him he couldn't sit there due to air regulations. When he questioned the rule, he said that the flight attendant suggested he buy 2 seats in the future. Oh, he must be big. Mr. Beals said he felt bullied and was forced to spend the flight in an ordinary seat. He maintains he would have been able to help in an emergency. The flight attendant, says, well, look, again, airway regulations. You cannot sit in an exit seat if you're disabled or if you require an extended seatbelt. Darren Beals of Geelong said he felt bullied and belittled by the Qantas flight attendant. He said, I can fit in the seat fine. I didn't need a second seat. It was fat shaming. She was rude. The Civil Aviation Safety Authority provides guidelines to Qantas about safety in the emergency exit row and recommends passengers seated there are able-bodied and capable of helping in an emergency. Passengers who buy seats in the exit row are asked to adhere to a range of criteria when they book. If the passengers are unable to meet this criteria, airlines, including Qantas, will ask passengers to change seats. That's what Qantas said in a statement to news.com.au. Customers who purchase an exit row seat are told they must satisfy the requirements during the booking process. So Qantas's website does say passengers who need an extension belt should not be seated in the exit row, which is consistent with other Australian airlines. So he's just upset because he didn't get his nice legroom seat. And, that is a safety consideration, whether you like it or not. The flight attendant does make an assessment And if you're using a seatbelt extender, that may indicate that you may be too big to provide suitable assistance in an emergency. What do you think, Dana?
Well, I think that I'm a guy of size. I mean, I'm not, severely obese.
No, not obese.
I am, I've got very big shoulders, and I often think about, honestly, if I had to go out the cockpit window, if I would even fit. And honestly, I don't know that I would very easily
Try
fit.
it next trip. No, I'm
Well, yeah, I should try. I should try it, see if it will work.
Stuck.
Yeah, just
stuck in in window when attempting to see if you can fit through. I'm sorry.
Oh man,
on the show though.
I can see this on USA Today or NBC World News Tonight or whatever it is, or ABC World News Tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, pilot tries to go out the window, gets stuck. Just practicing.
I think you'd fit through it.
I probably would in worst case, but in certain situations, I mean, it does say you have to be able bodied, and so it really comes down to how do you handle that. And I agree that this person probably was not handled properly. But I hate to say it, but he may have been a door plug instead of a door. No, I'm only kidding. I'm really not kidding. I mean, he probably could very very well have helped out. How do you judge an able-bodied person? I mean, if somebody's 95 years old and cane, barely can walk, and it's obviously brought on the airplane with a wheelchair, you can argue that person probably is not able-bodied. But if somebody is slightly overweight, maybe is over exceeding the capacity of the one seat, needs an extension of the seatbelt, is that the definition of somebody's not able-bodied? I would argue probably not. I would argue. I mean, what's his name that came to see me in Nashville? That came to see you in Charlotte. That came to see Steph and Charlotte from Pittsburgh.
JJ Pittsburgh.
JJ. Okay, so he's a little bit of a larger guy, but you want to know what I would say he was fully able-bodied, and he may or may not need an extension. I don't know that. I'm just using him as an example. But the guy had a lot of energy. He could walk. He could run. He probably could run. He could go up and sing, and fully able-bodied. So he can't look at somebody and just say, "Hey, you're not able-bodied just because of your waist size." It's not fair. I don't think.
Okay, I'm going to put my sixpenny worth in and say that the cabin crew have to make a very quick assessment. They've got a lot of duties before takeoff, and one of which is to ensure that the person who is seated beside the emergency exit is fit and able. And they can't spend a lot of time saying, "Oh, I just want you to run up and down the cabin a few times to make sure you're fit, and I just want to measure you to see whether you can get through that emergency exit fine." She had to just make an assessment, and her assessment was that this wasn't ideal. My personal, if I'd been asked as the captain, what do? I would have said, well, ask the passenger to be substituted with someone who is fit just for takeoff and landing, but let them return to their seat for the rest of the flight, because that's obviously not a problem once you've reached the cruising height. And particularly if it's a long flight and they already paid for the legroom seat, they deserve to have it. But just advise them that for takeoff and landing, they're going to have to swap with another passenger.
That's still shaming, Nick. I mean, I agree with what your philosophy is there. When the flight attendants come through the cabin, at least at our company, they do ask.
What is that? Nice one. What the hell?
Wow.
Nice one. That was good. I like that. That's good accompaniment. Can we use that next time?
Interesting. Don't know why that all of a sudden that page that I was on just decided to start playing music.
Exploded.
Yeah. Because I wanted to actually see a picture of this guy.
Well, and I was just going to say what I was closing with is that they actually come through the cabin, and when they brief the exit rows, they're asking you personally, are you willing and able to assist in case of an emergency? And if that person responds yes, and you look at the person and they're not obviously, I mean, if a person of size, how can say that? A person says that they're willing and able in case of emergency. I don't see how they can move the guy.
Well, I would say that the person saying yes is no actual indication of whether they are capable of doing. The cabin crew is the person who is trained and able to decide. Now, in your case, different, Danny. You're a trained pilot. You understand what is required to be able to work and assist and help people out through an exit or whatever your duties are as an ABP beside an emergency exit. But a passenger isn't aware of all those duties. So it's up to the cabin crew to make an assessment. And she does so, hand on heart. She would much rather have probably not moved this passenger because she realized it was likely to offend him. However, she did her best in the situation, and I would fully support her in that.
Yeah. Well, interesting questions always raised on our show. And it looks like it is, well, let me see what Liz is trying to tell me here.
Okay. 3 hours.
Yeah, we're already past the 3 hour point, so we'll have to save that for a future show. Sorry, Liz. Okay. With that, I think it is now time for us to end the show. I think we've gone over the 3 hour mark, so we do apologize for those of you who are on a strict schedule. We do appreciate the you listening to the show, downloading it to your favorite podcast client, reviewing it on iTunes and what will soon now not be called iTunes. Not sure where the podcast, I guess the podcast will live now on podcasts on the Mac OS as well, just as it does on iOS. All that stuff. You guys are great. We do appreciate our community more than you know. And if you want to learn more about it and other stuff regarding the Airline Pilot Guy show, including merchandise and well, so much more, the APG library, APG Live, Plane Tales, and all that jazz, head over to airlinepilotguy.com. And we're also on social medias. And this is where Captain Nick will say something about social media. Did I cut out? You didn't hear what I was saying?
And on Facebook, you can find us at the Airline Pilot Guy. If you use that as a search or just type that in after your normal Facebook intro. And Twitter and Instagram, we're at APG Crew.
Excellent. And we are also on Slack, which is a quasi social media thing. And I'll put this in post because I lost my soundboard over here for some reason. Wait a minute. Here we go. And we're also on Slack. Become an APG Slacker by listening to what Hillel tells us right now.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share ideas and news. We suggest episode and Plane Tales topics. We plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack@airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK, Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo @airlinepilotguy.com. Or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled HI11E1, Hotel India 11 Echo 1. And see you in Slack.
Thank you, Hillel, for all the hard work you do for keeping that Slack site going. And a big round of applause for our producer assistant.
Hooray! Thank you, Liz.
Liz Piper in Toronto.
Yay, Liz.
Couldn't do it without her. And remember, we're going to be in Oshkosh next month. More information about that as the closer we get. And don't forget about the Osh Blast 2019 Jim Mercado design T-shirts available by. If you're going to the show, send the email to oshblast2019 @airlinepilotguy.com. That goes to Liz. She'll get you on the list. And if you're not, then head over to Teespring. Again, this is on the APG website, APG store. So with that, finally, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care and God bless.
Bye, everybody.
See you next time. Hasta luego.
Yay. Wow, that all just kind of fell apart at the end. Sorry. I think what happened is the connection here is obviously getting worse because everybody is watching Netflix in the hotel, apparently. And Nick, I think you were saying stuff, and I didn't even know you were saying anything.
You're
doing a social
cutting it
media
out
thing.
pretty bad.
Yeah, so we're definitely gonna, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to use the individual tracks.
No problem.
I gotta
shall
remember how to send this.
dispatch
It's
my-
been a while.
Yeah, but no hurry. I'm not going to be able to get to editing until tomorrow evening or Sunday at the earliest. So,
What was the name of the website? You remember? Free.
For uploading the file,
Yeah.
would be, what is it called?
Oh God, I probably should save it.
WeTransfer, is that the one you're thinking of?
WeTransfer. Yeah. Oh, here, let me stop the recording.
I'm stopping.
No, somebody said in the chat room that they were misbehaving. I said, that's fine. It's fun when you guys misbehave, actually.
Yeah.
Let's see, where's the recorder? Okay, and hit the stop button. Boom. Okay, and thanks everybody. Speaking of the chat room, for joining us on today's show. As
Great
always,
to see everybody.
it really makes it just a whole different feel when we know we have a live audience out there watching us and participating in this whole thing. And you're as much a part of the show as we are. So thank you for that. And look forward to seeing you again next week. And have a great weekend and all that. And we're going to go ahead and sign off. Try to figure out when we're going to do the show next week and other information. So with that, take care, everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, folks.